Topic number 1. Should we discourage sex work?
Yeah, I think that sex work should absolutely be discouraged.
No, I don't think we should discourage sex work. I think the only reason why we are obsessing over it now is because we are conflating sex work, prostitution with OnlyFans. And
there's something that I think nobody's mentioned that I think is on my mind. I think you're probably all going to disagree with me based on the last conversation. But
I think far too much attention is paid to the sex workers as opposed to, I think, the most important demographic, which is their clientele.
If Tinder doesn't work for you, just don't use it. That doesn't mean we have to demonize it and blame all the other problems. Like, if you get rid of Tinder, it doesn't magically fix any of the problems we talked about. Not a single issue that we talked about goes away if we get rid of Tinder. It's all still the exact same.
No, okay, I need to use a shootout.
The issue would be
shootout or whatever with Destiny on this, because I think he's just wrong here.
Welcome everybody to the Tomfoolery panel. This is the shootout panel. This is the second one. I'm the host, Tom. My name is Tomfoolery on YouTube. I go by Tomfoolery Show. Currently streaming live on YouTube, Kick, Twitch, and Facebook. We're going to take a second and go around the room, allow everybody to introduce themselves, take 30 seconds to tell everybody who you are, where you're at, and where you're streaming from. Smith, why don't you go first?
I'm Real Smith on YouTube. On everything, I'm Real Smith, but mainly YouTube. And currently, I'm making a video about the Destiny report. So I want you to, I don't want that to be blindsiding you, Destiny. So I just want to.
Anything to keep the dream of me being a rapist alive. I fully support you.
No,
okay?
I don't think you're a rapist, but.
I'm sure he's super worried about it, Smith. Wick, go ahead and introduce yourself.
WhickTV. You can find me on twitch.com/WhickTV. You can also find me on Kick at WhickTV and YouTube at Wick-TV because someone stole my name. Anyway, there we go.
Awesome. Base FZZ.
Well, that's exactly right. You can call me Xerx or Ziku if you want. Been on YouTube for a minute. Talk about relationships, social commentary. That's my deal currently.
Thank you. Kidology.
I'm Z. I am on YouTube and Twitter under Kidology. I make video essays and I stream all about everything and anything to do with modern society. So primarily relationships.
Awesome. Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren 𝙤𝙚. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram. And I do a lot of interviews, but I also do a Judge Judy type show and some like law review type stuff.
What is a Judge Judy type show? Like, do you actually litigate stuff?
Well, we kind of try to, but we don't want it to be too serious, which is kind of a difficult balance. We want people who actually genuinely dislike each other, but not enough to take it to actual court, which is it's a hard.
Jerry Springer?
Well, I went to law school, so I'm trying to keep it actually as close to what I see in court as possible, and like let people actually, if they have an issue with somebody or think that they're lying, accuse them of defamation, accuse them of harassment without actually dragging their ass to real court is the goal.
Okay, cool. And then Destiny.
Hi, I'm Destiny. I talk about politics and philosophy on YouTube and Kick.
Sweet. All right. So first, we'll go ahead and go over some of the rules. One, when I speak, please stop talking. I need to be able to moderate. I'll be pretty liberal with interruptions and fights, but when I jump in, I need people to stop talking. If people continue to talk, I will also be liberal with the mute button. Secondly, we have a twist to the panel. It's called the shootout because each person has their own shootout pass. Each one of you starts with the pass. Whenever you want to use it, you just yell out shootout. We'll stop everything. Everybody will be muted, and you pick one other person that you get 3 minutes to have a debate with. It's 3 minutes of playtime. So just yell shootout, and then we will stop everything and allow the two of you to have a back and forth for 3 minutes. The person that you choose also loses their pass. So when you use your pass, you lose it, and whoever you choose will lose their pass. By the third round, if we've got a lot of passes used, we will put a poll in my chat and allow one person to get one pass back. Outside of that, we will go over each topic before we start the topic. We'll allow everybody to do an intro and an outro to each topic. Try to keep it below a minute so that we can get through things quickly. We don't really have hard caps on the panel nor on the topics, so we'll try to allow the content to flow if it's there. Do we have any questions before we start the first topic? Awesome. All right. Topic number 1. Should we discourage sex work? Should people who do sex work be stigmatized? We'll start from the bottom and go up. Destiny, will you go first with your intro, sir? 1 minute.
I feel like when it comes to things like sex work, I feel like discouraging or encouraging are strange ways to look at it. I feel like instead we should just have an honest conversation about what the pros and cons of sex work are. If you do sex work and you're young, obviously there's the cons that nudes of you might exist on the internet forever. Some people want to associate with you and you might have some trouble securing jobs in the future, but the pros might be you can make theoretically more money in 2 or 3 years and you'd have the ability to make for the rest of your life. It just really depends. Much like 𝙎𝖎𝖏 failed because people were unwilling to grapple with the actual pros and cons of drugs and instead thought they could just lie to people about them and discourage them forever. I think that just lying to people and discouraging them about sex work forever and saying it's all horrible and it's all evil is just going to lead more people to it. And it's not a realistic way to confront the problem of maybe people jumping into it too early without being fully recognizing all of the potential cons.
Awesome. Thank you, Destiny. Lauren. I agree with a lot of that, but I do want to define sex work, and then because sex work, I wouldn't necessarily include OnlyFans. When I think of sex work, I think of just prostitution. I don't think of pictures online. However, as what Destiny said, as terms of discouraging, when he was talking about having a useful conversation, well, that conversation is legislation. And when we're talking about discouraging sex work, I don't think it should be federally illegal. I think that should be a state by state issue. And however, if I were in a state which would have it on the bill, I would probably vote to outlaw it because I don't think that sex work is a positive thing for society.
We hear somebody typing
hey, Wick.
loudly right now.
Apologies.
Fucking piece of shit.
Apologies.
That mechanical keyboard?
Yes, I usually have push to talk on Discord, but because we're not, and you guys can just hear me type. I'll pause.
Did you have anything else, Lauren? No? All right. Kidology.
No, I don't think we should discourage sex work. I think the only reason why we are obsessing over it now is because we are conflating sex work, prostitution with OnlyFans. And I think the only reason we care about it now is because women have greater autonomy over their financial means via OnlyFans. And suddenly this is quite petrifying for men specifically, and they are obsessing over it far too incessantly and to their detriment. I think in terms of sex work, it hasn't necessarily changed greatly in terms of numbers. It ranges from about 0.1% to 2% in the Western world, which is not a significant amount of people. I think we need to change the socio-economy in order to better accommodate women who are prostitutes, the majority of whom are single mothers with children to support. So yes, I think it's about improving the wider socio-economy and making it more family-centered, as opposed to discouraging sex work. You're not going to get anywhere with that.
Thank you, Kidology. Base FCZ.
Yeah, I think that sex work should absolutely be discouraged. However, I would say that I don't think that any young lady or even young man that participate should be mistreated as a person. However, I do think that the profession, if you can call it that, should be discouraged from people. I don't think that it's a good path for the person themselves, nor do I think that it's going to give us any great boon in society. So as far as their mistreatment, should it be stigmatized? I would say yes. I do think people should have the right and ability to discount relationships with these people. And I think that sometimes businesses should be able to avoid business with these people as it may affect their image. However, again, I would like to maintain these people shouldn't be mistreated. They shouldn't be insulted or harmed. But I do think that the profession should be extremely discouraged.
Thank you, Base. And Wick?
Yeah, so it's real simple, right? I think that none of us here would say, maybe Smith will prove me wrong, but that we should mistreat sex workers. But when we talk about sex work, it's such a broad umbrella. And I was saying in this before we started officially, that it's really hard to deal with as a broad umbrella. Prostitution as in walking the streets, yes, I would discourage that. But OnlyFans, not necessarily, right? I would consider both types of sex work, but I think society, I'm going to set the legal, I'm sorry, Lauren, but the legal side doesn't interest me as much because I think that we can culturally and societally influence these things without using the law, and that in many cases we should. And so I think while I would discourage things like prostitution as in street walking and things like that, I don't have that same prescription for things like OnlyFans. So yeah, it really depends what you mean by sex work. That's my intro.
All right, and Smith.
All right, I see sex work as a gradient, and prostitution is going to be the most extreme. I think it should be discouraged, but the lesser you get on the gradient, the less it should be discouraged, because the less it's like, the less sex work you're doing. But I think regardless, I think what you're doing, like with OnlyFans, for example, like you can say that it empowers women in a way that they haven't empowered before, but it empowers them by playing into the de facto sexual objectified role that they've been given in society. That they, and so by playing into that to an extreme, it's almost like it's like the red pill solution. Well, if they're making a lot of money, then this is like the best thing they should do. And red pillers are right about a lot of shit, but that doesn't mean that it's the best way to be. And I don't think that we should advocate for it. So that's why I discourage it. I also think that it causes a chilling effect on relationships in society, and I think that the prevalence in small types of sex work like OnlyFans is contributing to the loneliness and the incel epidemic.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Base to kick us off for the open discussion. You're muted. Or we can't hear you.
That's my bad. Yeah. So I'm kind of against all of it in principle. So that would go from street walking quite literally to OnlyFans as well. I think the first thing to open up with is a lot of the times what gets a lot of women, and we usually focus this conversation on women because it's usually them doing it, but what usually gets a lot of women into sex work is oftentimes either mental health issues or it's some type of distress going on in their lives. Like they need money, they need help paying for something. And so the path to getting into this is usually nothing positive. And I only say usually because I could be wrong, but overwhelmingly it seems to be the case that either they're trying to pay for their family, they might be trying to pay for college, or they might have some different mental health issues. I have some studies I can probably pull up later in the discussion, but as a start, usually what starts women into this path is nothing good. And I'm just only being gracious to say perhaps someone can show me the good that gets women into this profession.
Base,
I would actually be really interested in seeing anything, if you can find it, throw into the group, because I tried to look at this earlier and it seems like the idea that women that do sex work come from like broken families or have daddy issues, that seems to be completely based in myth. I haven't seen any actual like study that shows that like, oh yeah, women that do this have a higher likelihood to have adverse childhood trauma or any other type of thing. I'd be curious.
Yeah, but I haven't seen any studies that said that they've only had ever good life. Anything good did come from this. The study that I do have does actually show that they are in a higher risk of having mental health issues.
That would be weird. So, that would be weird if the case that every single woman who went into sex work has a good life. That would be weird, and it would be something that would give me pause, and I would want to know why.
Well, sure. Our null hypothesis would be that they'd be just like normal people, right? Yeah. And to divert from that, we'd probably need some kind of data, right?
Indeed. But I had a question for you, actually, Base, if I may.
Wait, really quick. I think there's probably a really high correlation with the desire to be validated by men. So I would say that would be that's all.
That could be part of it. I mean, you could table that into the mental health issues thing.
I mean, that's literally every woman and every guy, though. Every guy also wants to be validated by women. I don't think that's a mental health issue.
I mean, higher than average.
Yeah, but when it comes to doing sex work, usually these people are more prone to anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. It's
maybe.
No. If you need, I can read
before we get into the studies thing. You made a statement earlier that jobs and things should discourage and maybe even be able to fire someone or refuse to hire someone who's engaging in sex work. And I don't know if I agree with that. I think that someone who is engaging in, say, OnlyFans, for example, has an OnlyFans. I understand that it could be disconcerting, right? To know that a teacher, for example, someone who teaches kids, has an OnlyFans. But I don't know if I'm okay with the education system or a company firing someone simply because they found out they had an OnlyFans, especially if the person's being discreet, especially if the person isn't, doing anything in school or in their job that would suggest they are, but simply to have an activity, that a side hustle that you're doing outside of your job, I don't think that should be grounds for you to be fired.
Think that for private institutions, like private school teachers?
I don't think it should be illegal, right, for them to fire you, but I think I would judge the person who does it, right? Just like I think that it is immoral to fire someone for that, if that makes sense, right?
Perhaps, but no. Well, go ahead.
Aren't most private schools, they're usually based in religion, and most religions would discourage from publicly sexual activity or encouraging sexual activity.
Religions discourage all sorts of sins.
Right. So, like, let's say you found out that one of your employees was doing something that you found morally reprehensible, like kicking dogs or beating women, and you fired him. And it's like, okay, that's your moral reprehensivity, but
there's a difference there. Sure. I'll engage with you on this. I think that there is a substantive difference between doing something that I find reprehensible that's actually hurting people, right? That's like kicking dogs or beating women.
Okay, how about eating shit?
Level. Eating shit?
Eating shit. Yeah, because that would be offensive. It would be like if you knew someone around you was eating shit, then you'd be you'd just look at them different.
Yes, I would, right? But I don't think I would fire them or be comfortable firing them. I would probably want to get them help and bring them to someone that can actually help them. But
I think when it comes to the stigmatization of like sex work, nothing really happens in a vacuum, right? You can't really fully separate yourself from the job that you're doing and your character and the image that's going to have on other people. So let's say you are a teacher and you're doing OnlyFans, right? You can't just simply say, well, I do this at home, and there's no effect it's going to have on these kids who may find themselves going online and accessing that through like a leak that may happen. Like it might be easy to say,
the only
well, this
reason
is paid
it would
material,
have an effect is if it does get leaked to the children.
That could be
the
case.
For example,
the problem is you probably shouldn't, just as a first mover, even allow this in the first place. To even allow these students to disrespect their teacher by finding their naked material and then like spreading it to each other. And then you don't want the school to be associated with.
What if the leak is done because you sent? So what if it wasn't OnlyFans? And if your problem with this is that kids can find naked pictures of their teacher, say someone was a teacher and she had a boyfriend who was a real piece of shit and leaked her nudes online that they sent privately one to another, and this is now a thing. Do you think the teacher should be fired for that?
No, that wouldn't be sex work.
Yeah,
that wouldn't be
but the problem is the same. But the problem is the same
situation. The difference is it isn't.
Why kids are seeing naked pictures of their teacher?
So you would say literally they're viewing this, right? But the difference is that you've had a breach in trust versus a commodification of sex, right? We're talking about like the themes and things that are going on.
But that doesn't matter. Like objectively, we have the same situation. No, it doesn't, because it doesn't matter why you do it. If the kids, so you're a teacher, it's not a good. I don't think it's a good situation if you're a teacher. Like I agree with Wick. You should not be fired for being an OnlyFans worker. Like that seems, it probably some way shouldn't be acceptable, or I don't know, it should be illegal. But I don't think if you're a teacher and your students find your nudes and stuff, that's not tenable. Like, I think that's something and it doesn't even matter why. I think that maybe like the school should try to like relocate you to another school or something. But
they probably would, actually. That's kind of first and foremost. The school district usually does do that. But second, it still doesn't change the fact that when you look at the profession, like you're not just having nudes leaked of you, of which, like, again, a breach in trust. This is a profession that you're going into, which can encourage other people to also follow behind you, or encourage, you would say, disrespect. And that's an avenue that shouldn't really be allowed to teenagers for their teacher in the first place. That's what I would say. I would
Yeah,
say
I
that.
just do not see, right, the distinction you're trying to make between these two situations.
Well,
I
again,
understand the
so-
money is in the commodification, and maybe being an example is important to you, but I do not think, right, that simply, and we talked about destigmatization. That's a whole topic here, right? I do not think that someone deciding to make an OnlyFans and keeping and using every effort to keep that private should be stigmatized. If that's
Well,
their
why are they
choice.
keeping it private though? If there isn't a
Because
stigmatization,
just like a lot of other activities, if people find out you do it, right, they're going to look at you differently. It might not be morally wrong to do it.
Okay, no, but the thing is, so let's say that you are at school. It's just we are open about this, and it's part of society. This is the chilling effect I was talking about, and someone just messaged me about this because they were watching it. But it would mean that like young teens, especially young teens, like people with young bodies, they would see their body like a cash cow, and you know that your friend is a sex worker, OnlyFans person, and now you had a crush on them and you want to have a relationship with them, but now that you see their sexuality and their sexual attention is a transactional thing, the way you're going to go about their sexual attention or in the way that relationship might look in the long run is a totally different thing. It would totally devalue all your other relationships.
Yeah, but I think we have to engage with reality at some point. The reality is, if you are a woman, you can sell your body. No matter how you try to sugarcoat that to kids, like that is a reality that has probably been in existence since cavemen were trading stones.
That might be the case, but we discourage negative things.
I'm just saying to pretend that we are never going to talk about it, or like we don't want kids to ever see that. Like that is a reality. And that argument, not to say that anybody here would make that argument necessarily, but like some people will stretch that argument all the way to school is just a training ground for capitalism. Students are taught that they need to sit in one place for 8 hours a day and work on homework, just like they'll be working in an office like a good little drone when they grow up. I don't think it's a compelling argument to say if a kid sees something, their brain is automatically fried. I think that the argument needs to be what I said at the beginning. You have to teach the pros and the cons rather than thinking you can turn a blind eye to something when the internet is out here and everybody can see the reality of things.
Well, I'm not saying that their brain is fried. I'm not saying their brain is fried though. I'm saying that if you know that your friend is a sex worker, you see them different. And like if you had a crush on them, now the way you're gonna engage with them, like to try to engage in a relationship, now it's like, well, why don't I just pay them? Or and all of your relationships will be much more transactional and less intimate.
Yeah, we're gonna let Kidology jump in real quick.
Sorry.
Kidology, go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say the ultimate blind eye is that men are buying sex, and that men have been buying sex from women since the beginning of time. I mean, the easiest way to discourage sex work is to discourage the clientele. Like that is the obvious way to go about it, because sex work is intrinsically tied to the cost of living and to men being prepared to buy sex.
How would you discourage it?
The obsession, I think, with
there's certain
the sex
countries
workers
that have tried that, right? But they weren't as successful as they originally thought. Now that we're looking back decades later, like Sweden and Norway tried to outlaw the sale, but outlaw the purchase, but not the sale. Correct? Is that correct, Kidology?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think it's
and
still
it ended up causing
currently.
It ended up causing, from my understanding, more sex trafficking. The decrease in price per sexual transaction, so sex workers were making less money, the sex industry to become more underground, and for the women to have less ability to actually, the women within the trade. Now, the trade did decrease significantly, which was part of the goal. So that part was successful. However, the women in the trade are having horrific experiences. Now, from my understanding, there's not a ton of research. The only study that I found had like an N value of 30, which is pretty weak, but it's still pretty intensive individuals, like study into those 30 individuals.
Yes, it's intensive, but I would say that with anything, when you're making such a fundamental revelatory change, it's going to take a very long time. I mean, in the same way that it took a very long time for the industry to be built up in the way that it's been built up, dismantling it and actually finding the right ways of doing so are going to take a lot longer than 10 or so years. So,
well, no offense, but if we've been doing this since the dawn of time, why does it take such a long time for us to understand how to do it? Isn't there something intrinsically problematic with sex work and such we even have to have this conversation? No one has to argue whether or not we should construct buildings.
I just don't
what,
think. I
what
don't
is it
think
about
that
sex
most
work?
society. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a historian, right? But I don't think most societies, especially early societies, outlawed it at all, right? In fact, some celebrated it in a lot of cases.
Yes, I mean the Greeks.
Also, I take issue with the example. We argue all the time about constructing buildings in the United States. It's like one of the biggest things we fight about.
Do we argue about the profession or where we construct it? Because in this case, we're arguing about the profession,
and even
not whether
how.
or not
Have you
where
not
the
seen
woman
those?
could do
It's
it.
like those tweets, and I know Twitter source, right? Twitter posts with like showing different types of architecture and trying to argue which is better. Like this happens all the time.
That's more subjective. We're talking about the actual profession of being a sex
Isn't
worker.
this subjective as well?
Yeah, if you don't think
you
think
mean like
you
the
could
aesthetic versus like
sex work is aesthetic.
No one's arguing that you shouldn't be a grocer. No one's arguing that you shouldn't be a lawyer. We're currently arguing that we shouldn't.
I think you shouldn't be a sex worker. I'm okay with sex work 100% if we have a world where we have like sex workers go to college the way a psychologist goes to college or a therapist, because the level of intimacy, the reason that a therapist has to learn how to set all these boundaries and protect themselves and to protect the client, protect both themselves and the client, because it's a very dangerous situation because of the high level of intimacy. And sex work, you're having an even higher, like that's why it's so hard to become a sex therapist. It's like there's a big bar to entry to that, and I think it's a really cool profession and we should do more of it. But I think all sex work is sex therapy. So that's why
so you think I should be able to like major in sucking dick and get a master's in like
absolutely.
Well, you think
yes.
Okay, that's funny. But just real quick, Lauren, you said we don't argue whether, or we don't debate whether people should be lawyers or doctors or grocers. But there are plenty of professions where people do debate whether they should do being a soldier, right? There's a lot of families, a lot of police officer. There's even an actor. There's a lot of families that will very much discourage you from being an actor because of the effects of the job, the perception of society on the job, and what
there's the danger of being a police officer or a soldier.
What about an actor, right? The danger of being an actor and the reason why people discourage acting.
You could argue about the environment.
On it.
Well, hold on.
Right?
There's So, and this actually is a little similar to sex work in the way of being an actor, is that it is a job that lacks a lot of consistency. So a parent might say to their child, I don't think you should be an actor. You may not get as much work. You may have to leave to another side of the country. You might even end up homeless if you're living in LA. It would be the same as with being a sex worker. The only difference is you are purposely putting yourself in some pretty dangerous situations if you're going to be, let's say, a streetwalker, if you're going to be an escort, if you're going to be physically in these environments with these men. So my question is, should we encourage this? Because we all know we don't. Like, for example, would you guys want a pimp to go to a high school job fair to recruit young ladies to be a sex worker?
No,
I think I can assume probably not, right?
Think of a lot of people in real jobs that we wouldn't want going to like high schools to do.
Like a lot of people don't want.
This is hold on. This is a really good place to point out. Like, there's a threshold. There's a threshold being crossed right now, where now the sex work is isolated to an app that all like kids can have on their phone. And so like the awareness that I can do this right now. I have a body that's in high demand. Just that having a phone now makes you like that's going to be like the guys at the job fair now.
But there's a bit of a problem here, right? Because we've also made a little bit of an assumption that if a woman goes into sex work, she'll even be successful to begin with. She actually might not, even on OnlyFans. Only a few amount of ladies actually find.
Hey, I'm on your side. Don't bulldoze my point. That's the best point that's come up yet.
I'm with you.
The fact that if it's on our phone, the fact that it's
we're working together is what I'm saying.
You're just the fact that it's on everybody's phone means that the pimp is now at the job fair. The pimp is now in every single kid's phone. The pimp that's at the job fair, they all have access to this career and awareness of this and aware of the demand for that. And the fact that children are aware of the demand for their bodies makes the prospect of having young relationships seem like a loss of value too.
Yeah,
because they're going to maximize the value that they can get out of their body.
I don't think children make decisions like this.
Sure, but they could.
Well, that's not. I mean, children like can barely grasp the concept of student loans. I don't think a child is going to be like, I shouldn't enter any relationships because I can monetize my body better. I don't think there's any line of logic that connects those.
Yes, nobody thinks like that.
I hope that you're right.
Well, I mean,
actually,
even normal sex workers will have like,
yeah, he's right.
Like, there's never been like, well, maybe, but I find it hard to believe that there's a girl who's like dating a guy, and the guy's like, oh, you should send me like pictures of your booty, and she's like, I could, but I could just post it to OnlyFans instead. Sorry, boy, and I'm just not gonna send you any like that. I don't think that people's brains work that way. I don't think there's like an opportunity cost to people thinking about like taking nudes or having relationships.
Well,
I think
a lot of OnlyFans workers actually have this issue where like they only have sex for their OnlyFans account, and so then it becomes like a weird thing where, well, I'm gonna have sex with my boyfriend, but we should film it, and then they only ever have sex when that happens. I've heard people like actual people in real life tell me that.
I don't think this.
If it does happen,
it may not be. I've definitely think that happens.
Well, it definitely does happen to some porn stars. Some porn stars come back home from set and don't want to touch their boyfriend, or their said boyfriend doesn't want to kiss them. He's right. It definitely can have an effect on your relationship.
Yes.
I mean, can have an effect is true, of course, but like, we'll never have sex unless I can film it. I've never heard that. I guess it's possible, but I've never.
I mean,
heard that
perhaps. I'm a little bit with you. I mean, perhaps. I don't know on that one.
Look, there is a discussion to be had about making people aware of the results that are going to happen or likely to happen if you engage in this kind of thing, even as an OnlyFans model. I think that's a great conversation to have with people, right? Especially young people, saying, hey, if you do go into this kind of work, these are some of the downsides that you will get into, right? Whether it's right or wrong, this is what's likely to happen. But I think that's a different thing than by saying you shouldn't do this, right? I think that's a very different thing. I think that, again, I wouldn't encourage any young person to smoke or drink, but I know that a lot of them are going to, right?
Well,
and
here's
I know
the
a lot of them
problem
are going to engage
that
in
I
that.
have.
And so I want them, just real quick, and I want them to know the dangers of it, and I want them to know like how to do so responsibly as well. And I think that we could probably stand to have a conversation in schools about, if you want to go into sex work, this is how you do it responsibly.
All right. I think the first question, well, actually, that'll probably be the last question. The first thing that kind of bothers me about this discussion from everyone else, but I guess Lauren, is the fact that we try to pretend that this is like a neutral thing, like it's just some normal profession that you get into, that you get the same amount of training. For one, it's not. Like, where is the school or institute where you learn how to be a sex worker? I haven't seen it. What is the tuition there? What is the training
the internet.
required?
The school is the internet.
So
you Google it,
just random.
No,
that's like rumor. That's not they're not trying to help you. They're trying to exploit you.
No,
so that's just number one.
You're applying,
right?
That's the school. Right?
Hold on. We don't have a training for this profession. That's just kind of like just number one. Number two, I noticed again, you guys are not for encouraging it. It seems that you all understand that there is some problem with the profession itself. That's why you say, let them decide. I say, no, that's a bit foolish. You wouldn't just say, oh, wait, let's just let kids do whatever they want. No, you would say, you would look at being a firefighter, you would see its dangers, and you would say, you know what, I don't think I want my child to go into doing something like that. You would highly discourage, if you were a good parent, I would hope, for your child to try to sell drugs or to do any other dangerous profession. If your child is going into an environment you know is dangerous, you do not just say, all right, well,
once your child becomes
figure
18,
it out.
I don't think
it.
I don't think just because you might discourage something, you're trying to link the discouraging of a thing to the thing itself being unethical, and I don't think that necessarily follow. Well, no, because you just brought up firefighter. Being a firefighter is not unethical. I can think of a whole host of jobs that we wouldn't encourage our kids to go into, especially things related to entertainment. Most parents probably would be excited about their kid wanting to be like a musician or an actor for a variety of reasons. We brought this up earlier. I can also think of a number of jobs that people go into that we wouldn't consider unethical, that have no training whatsoever. For instance, the most desired job today among kids in school is being a YouTuber. There is no professional training for being a YouTuber, and there's a lot of exploitation in that too. It used to be MCNs on YouTube, now it's agencies. It could be other things as well. So I don't think any of the arguments you brought up necessarily make it illegal, or I'm sorry, necessarily make it unethical.
I think if we want to talk about it being unethical, then we would have to shift the focus. The first thing I wanted to get across is the lack of encouragement, and you guys seem to not be for encouraging it at all. You want to more or less be laissez-faire and let them decide. I say no, I don't think you should go into the profession from start to finish. I think that you definitely open the door up to, as we all seem to understand, exploitation from multiple different people. But there's also just the philosophy of being
I just don't think you can. I don't think you can. Just real quick, I don't think you can stop your kid once they are 18. You can't stop them, and you should not be able to stop them from doing it.
But that's a different conversation, though. Like, no one's asking for authoritarianism. We're saying let's have a logical argument as to why you shouldn't be.
But you mentioned that we're all for not encouraging it. That might be true, right? Well, I absolutely wouldn't encourage a child to do this, but I recognize that I can't decide once they become an adult whether or not they should.
But that would be
right?
true no matter what the subject is.
Hold on, I will take the encouragement arc. Okay, I'll defend this argument. I'm curious what you would say. You have a 19-year-old girl. She's pretty fucking dumb. College is not for her. She does okay in service jobs, but she's incredibly fucking hot. She likes sending pictures to boyfriends, and she doesn't really care that much about what's online about her, at least right now. She has the potential to go on and make, we'll say, $50,000 a month on OnlyFans, or she can make $35,000 a year at Starbucks. What is your argument against like helping this person understand, like, well, here are the pros and cons of OnlyFans. If you want to do it, go for it.
Because informed consent does not just mean how much money you can make and how easy it is to make it. Informed consent. So if you were going to have the education that Base is alluding to, but I actually articulated that would actually make it safe and would like we would actually have to send them to school to learn how to set boundaries like a therapist, but even on steroids. They'd have to learn how to protect the client from fucking them up and protect themselves from the client.
Hold on, wait. Nobody has to go, you don't have to go to
to
school to like learn how to do informed consent. I don't know what that means.
No. I'm okay. You have to. Okay,
he means
to understand. No, you have to go to school to understand. So if you could just go, you could have you could tell people, say that people want to. No, I don't. People want to talk to women. So you could just tell all women to just go talk, get men to pay them to talk to them, and they would be therapists. But we want people to go to school to be therapists because they're going to learn how to protect the client and protect themselves because they can fuck themselves up mentally and they fuck the client up mentally. So the informed consent I'm talking about is knowing exactly what's going on psychologically in the interaction.
Wait.
So that is the information.
Why would you hold these people to the same responsibilities as therapists?
Because I think it's the same. I think it's even more intimate than therapy. I think the reason
therapy is not measured by the intimacy, though. Like a massage is very intimate, but you don't need like informed consent to be a massage therapist.
I think you would.
A little bit.
Yeah, I think you would. Actually.
A massage.
Wait,
I don't even know.
Why did multiple people just say yes to that? No, there's not a huge like informed consent how to do like therapy for massage clients. That's not a thing. You
actually, okay. Wait, you're harping on the informed consent, but what I'm talking about is the boundaries and the emotional boundaries. And actually, I know massage therapists that they have extremely strict and rigid rules and guidelines and boundaries to set to protect their client and to protect themselves.
Yeah, and you can
in exactly the way I'm talking about.
Yeah, you can learn how to do that in 1 4-hour class. You don't have to go to school for that. There are massage schools if you want to, but like if you're posting pictures on OnlyFans, you're not giving therapy to people. I don't know where that idea is coming from.
You're fucking them up because you have an incentive to mess them up psychologically so that they have a dependence and they're going to come back to you. If they actually start forming healthy relationships, they're not even going to be return customers. There's a high incentive to mess up people's ability to form healthy relationships. It's the same with the streamers.
I don't know what kind of like sex work you're talking about, but I'm just talking about like posting pictures on OnlyFans.
Yeah, because OnlyFans, it's not just posting pictures, because you could just post but OnlyFans is the biggest part of that is the girlfriend experience, is the messaging. The fact that you know this person, you see them posting on social media and stuff, it's a real person. So you'll talk to them and you'll say, oh, could you do this particular pose for me or something? And so that is now an intimate exchange where they see you, they're highly parasocially attached to you. So if you don't know exactly what's going on there psychologically, it's extremely irresponsible, both for them and for you.
I don't know I don't know if you think the norm is like these in-depth conversations. I know there are a lot of large OnlyFans creators that do this, but I mean, like, what is if somebody messages you for nudes and they want to jerk off or masturbate while doing it, like if you want to have an informed consent class, I mean, I guess you can take an 8-hour course and you don't need to go to school
psychology.
And I don't even know, you don't need a psychology course for that. Number one. And number two, I don't even know if it's on the responsibility of the sex worker to figure that out. That feels more like a responsibility on the person engaging with the material.
I think it should be the responsibility on society to have these standards and ethics in place, not on the sex worker, but on the society to make the rules that we have to follow that, just like we do with therapy. Because when you go to a sex worker on OnlyFans, you tell them your darkest secret. You go and tell them your darkest.
This isn't normal. I don't know what kind of OnlyFans.
No, your sexuality is the product of all of your trauma and your fucking your parents and all of your history and shit. So when you give someone access to that, you're giving them the most vulnerable part of yourself.
Like you use these proprietary definitions for things and things like that. You keep saying that there should be rules and society needs rules in place to make sure that the person is licensed or accredited or whatever word you want to use before they engage in things like OnlyFans and what have you. But having rules on whether you're educated is the process of accreditation or licensing or things like that. That's how it works out when the rubber hits the road, when we actually implement these ideas into real life. How are you, the customer, supposed to tell the difference between someone who has had this course or who has not had this course? There would be a licensing system or some sort of accreditation or a diploma or something that you could show. So what, in your hypothetical world, would happen if a sex worker engaged in these things but was not able to produce proof that they had been through this course?
I think if we built that society, in that society, they would be in trouble.
What does
but
that
not
mean?
until we built
They'd
those.
be
They would have
unlicensed
legal. They'd
sex
have to pay a fine or something. I don't know.
I just don't
Like,
think the
just
vast
they
majority of people,
lose.
a lot of people
They
just
lose
wanna
their
jerk off.
license.
I think most people
They'd
just want
lose
to
their
jerk
li-
off. I don't think they're looking for.
I know the
purpose.
society that I'm talking about would have way less access to easily available.
What
sex
if
work,
they
so
weren't what if they weren't a sex worker? What if I just met someone online, I really dig their vibe, and I wanted to see their boobies, and I said, "Please show me your boobies and show me in this pose."
Why should
Would
you
they
have to
have
pay
to
for
have a
that?
license to do that?
Maybe in his society, but
Well, so real quick,
think
Destiny, you
no.
said that you were only talking about like Instagram models. Lauren brought up earlier that she's separating different types of sex work. How do you define sex work?
That's boring. It just. Or, I'm sorry. I don't mean boring. I'm sorry, but it's semantics. Like everybody's gonna have different definitions, right?
It is semantics. The point is that whatever you include might differentiate what he's talking about and what some of the others are talking
I
about.
think
What they
he's-
would or wouldn't stigmatize, or what they would put in or wouldn't put in.
He's talking about the same thing we're all talking about, which is just selling pictures of boobs and talking to people on OnlyFans. I'm pretty sure that's what he's talking about. He's not talking about real life sex therapists. He's just talking about people on OnlyFans.
me.
Yeah,
Smith
you
is,
are.
yeah.
So are you like when we're talking about
Yeah.
sex work? Like, what all are you stigmatizing in that group?
Oh, I'm not trying to stigmatize, but
Or what are
discourage.
you requiring a license for?
Everything.
Yeah, it's honestly a hard question. You're right. The place where that line is set is
Does
something I would have to
Amaranth need
think
a
really hard.
license for Twitch?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. I think in the case where you're doing a sexual service where the people are highly parasocially attached to you in a sexual way, I think that's dangerous for them. And I think that like the people that get there's so many dudes that get mad at women for doing this, and I think they're right because it is harmful to some men. Like it makes men like stunted emotionally. Even I think it's a big contributor to the OnlyFans
That's
thing.
not like look, buyer beware.
I mean, not
okay?
to the incel thing.
Sure, buyer beware. Like if in the year of our Lord 2023, you don't realize that the cam girl doesn't actually love you, that's on you.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
but no,
but
but she's- but it's
I don't know what to tell
is
you.
to create that image. though.
It's her job though. Like, so it's her job to make you feel like she loves you. It's like this is like saying I was arguing with someone.
This is not true. This is not the normal sex work. You have a very, very, very weird view
pretty
of like.
normal, Destiny.
No,
Especially
it's
on OnlyFans.
absolutely
Like if
not.
you look at their
No.
advertising and you look at the way they speak to these men, it is pretty normal that
No,
they're
it's
trying
not
to
normal
develop
that they're
some
trying to
type of
make them
relationship.
love you. That's not true.
Even if it's not love, they want to create some type of pseudo relationship. They tell them sweet nothings. They tell them this is for your eyes only. They try to make them feel special. It is a part of the business model of OnlyFans.
I think we should all go spend 2 hours surfing OnlyFans accounts. I don't know what the fuck accounts you guys
I
look
have.
at.
I don't need to
I've done
surf 2
it.
hours.
There
I've
are
already done
some
it.
that have
Henceforth,
done-
why I'm saying what I'm saying.
There are some
They
that
are
do-
trying to create these parasocial relationships with these young men.
Yeah, there are some that do GFE, but it's not the norm. I don't think the largest creators do this.
Because
That's
they
a
don't have the
subset.
time to do that. Number one, they're the largest creators. But first of all, like we can't even judge OnlyFans by the largest one. That's like an apex fallacy. If we look at it from a whole, if we look at all the advertisement the girls are doing, if we're looking at the posts the girls are sending, if we're looking at the conversations they're having, they're trying to build a relationship with these young men. They're trying to get these dudes attached to them so they stay and they become longtime subscribers.
Just like any business would to a customer.
factual.
That's called customer relationships, right?
And
you
that be
build
the
a
case.
relationship with
What
your customer.
Smith is saying, and he's got a great point, that the type of business that we're doing is dangerous because we're playing with the mental state of some already otherwise lonely and sometimes fractured people. It's probably not something you should be playing with without full knowledge and understanding of how you're affecting your clientele.
Sure, just
like
as
for
a test.
example,
Well, as a test,
go ahead.
would you say that like all women that are like flirty bartenders or servers that is equally unethical, or rather it's in the same vein as being unethical?
No,
Not
well,
really,
it depends.
no.
It depends how much their job relies on that. So if they
Well,
make
if
all
you're
the
a
tips by
bartender
doing
as
that,
a woman, or if you're a server,
No.
your job definitely relies on you being flirty. Yes,
sure,
absolutely.
sure,
You don't
that
have
they
to.
are.
Actually,
Yes,
you don't have
that
to.
is the
It's not a
same.
requirement. No, it's not a requirement to be flirty.
Yeah,
as
but
a
it's not a
bartender.
requirement, but it's the
If
same.
you wanna
If
make
they're
more
doing that as
money,
the
you
main way
will.
to make the money, because they get the. I used to teach at a paint bar, and I would flirt with these middle-aged women, and I would say I was definitely bordering sex work when I did that. You know, like
No.
Perhaps
We got
even
about
Being,
5
okay,
minutes left.
You're playing
If
hard
we
and
are, no,
loose on that one.
stop. If we are going to say that a flirty bartender or a flirty waitress is bordering sex work,
Yeah,
then
come
maybe
on.
we do need to have a conversation for what fucking sex work is, because that's
We
not
do.
sex
No,
work.
it's
yeah.
not this. It's not as much sex work as posting pictures, and then that's not as much sex work
No,
as
to
like
directly
putting your
respond.
getting someone put their dick in you. But
Yeah, but if I directly respond to you, Destiny, I would say no. Bartending is bartending. Like if you're a flirty person, that might accent it, that might help you. But the profession you're in is to tend. Like you're either gonna get a tip or you're not. You can be as flirty as you want. You're not gonna get a tip.
Sure. I'm just saying
However,
that
the
all the
subscription
same
into
things-
OnlyFans
I'm just
is
saying
to
that-
be sexual.
I'm just saying that all the same issues that you run into in like OnlyFans, you absolutely run into as a waitress, server, or as a bartender. I can speak from firsthand experience. I work
To be
alongside these
fair,
people
but
that like
then-
you'll have people that are stalkers that
Okay.
become obsessed with you and become in
But
love with
that's
you.
it. I could be consistent and say they shouldn't be flirtatious as well. Now what?
Okay, then that's fine. I'm just making sure you're consistent.
There you
No,
go.
it's not fine. It's stupid. It's
Well,
like
yeah, of
this
course, that's
idea,
You can
right?
feel that
no,
way
stop.
about it, but I mean-
Just like that. We are constraining our emotions so much in our human interactions. Flirting and being personable is part of being human, and interacting with people on the street,
honestly,
in
I
the
would go-
line, and
oh,
this
how
idea
about this?
that we can't like what. This may be a little bit of a tangent, right? But when people complain that I was at the grocery store in line and someone talked to me, how dare they, right? I hear that from time to time. I think that
yeah, I
really
had to take out my wallet and give them money for their sex work.
like we're really I'm talking with another customer, right? I think we're really like constraining the ways that humans just interact in a way that is harmful.
Hold on. But that's a bit different though, right? Because there's a difference between me paying a woman to pretend to be into me versus a woman being into
Yes.
me. The mutual exchange of me and her
In the
having a
scale,
relationship is not the same as me paying.
You know, a lot
it's
of
like
women
a bartender could flirt with one customer, and that's not the same as what we're talking about. We're talking about a bartender that makes all of her tips from flirting with every customer, and she only expects to be making money because she's flirting with customers.
You're describing bartenders.
That's bartenders.
Yes, that's most bartenders, most female bartenders in most places, but that's not how
that's
it has
all
to
bartenders.
be. But like, and that's kind of fine. It's to some extent, and I think that the OnlyFans thing is kind of fine. But I think that but like kind of like what Bass was saying, but it's not exactly what the core of bartending is. So they don't actually have to rely on that. And I don't think if women have to rely on that, it's kind of dystopian that like women, in order to do the same job as a man, they have to do it but flirt and like be sexual. That's a dystopian world. I don't want to live in that world.
The men are like really bartenders are, depending on where you go, depending on like where you're hanging out at, like bartenders are going to be some of the most friendly / flirty people you'll run into, whether it's guys with girls or girls with guys, or like this is what bartenders are. They tend to be the most attractive people in a given fucking place. They tend to be incredibly pro-social. That's how they make their tips, especially if you go on like a Friday, Saturday night. You're not going to get a person that's just making you drinks.
Yeah. No offense, but it's a bit irrelevant.
It's kind of sex work. It's a little bit sex
Hold
work.
on, we're gonna go ahead and end it there. I'm sorry, Wick, but you have the first one to get voted off the panel, buddy.
We vote people off this?
Oh no, sorry, wrong show. Let's go to closing statements. Lauren,
I was the only one keeping the conversation going.
Closing statement.
Okay, my closing statement I don't think is going to make very many people happy, but essentially I feel like we didn't define the necessary words that we needed to define, because as we got into it, everything divulged into sex work, and we didn't. And even if we're going to talk about the word discourage, what do you mean by discourage? Wick instantly said he wasn't interested in the legal aspect. Well, if you're talking about influencing a society, isn't discouraging them through legal means? I don't even know any other means other than socially shaming them. So yeah, I feel like we should have gone into definitions more, but I appreciate where y'all come from, especially Bass.
Base.
So I would.
Sorry, I
would,
wasn't correcting you.
oh.
I was going to him. Yeah, base.
Yeah, you want me to, okay. Yeah, I would actually say that I think the opposition's position kind of speaks for itself insofar as what they want is to be laissez-faire, just let it go off and let people decide. The only problem is like the nature of the work that you're doing. From what Smith said is actually a really great point of view, is you have an effect on the clientele first and foremost and how they're going to be interacting with the content. But to go off just that point, to actually go into what sex work is as well, even on OnlyFans, one thing that's really interesting that we don't look at is the philosophy of what these ladies are doing, right? If you think about it, in every other type of position, every type of work, you're being compensated for doing something that is not of benefit to you, right? So again, if I use the construction worker, I'm building a building that I'm not going to live in. And so I'm paid for my labor and my time. The problem with a lot of sex work is that the woman is the person. She is, quote unquote, the product. If she's having sex, or if she's flirting, or if she's interacting with the man, that is the benefit unto itself. So even the way we define most services, sex work doesn't really even fit into that, because then we have to ask the ultimate question: why should any young man really pay to have a pseudo relationship with a woman when he can actually have real sex with her or actually be in a good committed relationship? I don't think anyone here would really be able to answer that question, apart from maybe she's really good at having sex, and of which I would reply, he can get good at having sex with a woman that actually likes him. So
awesome. Thank you.
That.
Wick, glad you're still here with us, buddy. You want to give your closing statement?
I'm not sure if I'm glad, but I'm here. Yes. On the 4th of July, Independence Day, I am proclaiming and supporting that people can do what they want. Freedom is a good thing, and freedom of choice and the freedom and the ability to do something that other people find distasteful is something I absolutely support. I absolutely am for allowing people to make that decision for themselves, both the customer and the sex work customer, as well as the sex worker herself or himself, in the case may be. When we talk about discouraging these things, right? Yes, social stigma is another way other than legal to discourage someone. And that's a very broad statement, right? We say it as one thing, but again, there's a lot of different ways to socially shame, stigmatize, or nudge people in different directions, just by promoting things or discouraging other types of actions. So at the end of the day, while I do not participate in sex work, sorry ladies, and I do not purchase sex work, you know, what other people want to do, that's on them.
Awesome. Thank you. Also, I see a lot of people asking if the panel's over. The panel is not over. We still got 2 more topics to go. Destiny, closing statement, please, sir.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what we all think sex work is. It seems like we're working on some really different definitions. I fully agree with Smith that in the world where the average sex worker is entertaining like all of the therapeutic needs that a man has, she probably should need more qualifications. But I don't know if that maps on to the average OnlyFans girl that just posts pictures of her butt on her OnlyFans. Yeah, my position is unchanged from the beginning.
All right, Smith.
All right. I think that I don't think you're fulfilling all the needs. They're fulfilling all the needs. I think they're poorly. I think men go to these women with needs that they don't even understand they have. And if like a lot of sex workers will just end up causing you to get more fucked up. And I just think it's irresponsible and dangerous. But I'm also very pro freedom. It's a very dangerous and vulnerable and turbulent thing to engage with, and I don't think we should make it illegal, but I don't think we should encourage it. And the boundary there that I have is with like OnlyFans being an app that like all like teenagers can have on their phone and shit like that. Now that's the thing, encouraging past the point which we should be discouraging. I think by taking it, if we got rid of OnlyFans, just everything's like so much better. Like
Smith, is it true that you actually do porn?
I've made porn for free, and I got like twice people paid me like $100 for nudes.
Okay. You felt like you needed training for that?
I didn't really have any kind of conversation with them, but they wanted me to, but I didn't. But I mean, in the world that I'm talking about, I would have needed to, so I wouldn't have been able to make money off of that.
Okay. Kidology.
Oh, yes, this was a very unamusing conversation between the three at the top, Smith, Wick, and 𝕵𝖎𝖎, but I guess thank you anyway. I think far too much attention is paid to the sex workers as opposed to, I think, the most important demographic, which is their clientele. In answer to Smith about sort of qualifications in sex work and sort of defining sex work, there are, at least in the UK, individuals who are sex therapists who charge at the moment $2,500 for one session at a time with them. If you're going to get any man to average man, especially young men, to pay that kind of money, you're barking up the wrong tree. I think that morality ultimately doesn't pay the bills, and morality is really not about the kind of escapism which most men go to OnlyFans for. It's really not that deep, I don't think. So I think we're just focusing on the wrong subjects in terms of the question as to should we discourage sex work? And I think ultimately we should care more about the wider socioeconomy and also about why women are going into sex work. The main reason being is that, at least with prostitution, they're single mothers with kids and they don't have any interfamilial connections primarily, at least based on recent data. So yeah, I think the conversation was disappointing.
Well, you were
I
here
agree.
too.
That's a good conversation to have. We didn't have it.
Hopefully you won't be disappointed with the next one. So the next topic is, are incels oppressed / marginalized, and what should we do to help them? People like Jordan Peterson have argued that we should have government programs to give men girlfriends, and some people say that they just need to try harder and that there's nothing systemic holding them back whatsoever. So for this one, we are going to start with Smith. Good sir, start us off, please, sir, with your opening
What was it
statement.
again?
1 minute.
I was gonna drink of water. Did you say that again?
Are incels oppressed, and what should we do to help them?
Yes, they're impressed. They're oppressed. We don't really care about them, and I think things we could do to help them. I think that we are making sociality, we're basically like Uberifying everything. We're making our personal lives something we look at for profit. Our sex lives something we look at for profit. We're trying to min-max everything, like Andrew Tate. We're trying to make everything like an exchange that we're like consciously aware of. And I think that people that are socially inept, especially men, because being socially inept as a man, you can't lean back on the fact that people want to exploit your body. And like, for not all women, but most women want to be, men want to exploit most women. So I just think that there's nothing that we want to obtain from these men except for their labor value, and we don't care about them on a personal level, and they're just left on the wayside.
All right, Kidology.
Yes, I think
whose
incels...
fucking phone is going off? Mute it.
Right. I do think that incels are oppressed and marginalized, but I think that we really have a great misunderstanding about the actual demographics of incels and actually ultimately what we can do to help them. And I also think that we are riding a fine line between saying, yes, that incels are marginalized and oppressed, and then on the other hand, using that to validate a lot of the sort of victimhood complex, which they take on, at least the most vocal ones, the most overt ones, and also their lack of taking responsibility for, I think, especially their mental health. But I do think that mental health services need to do a lot better in terms of helping incels, and that ultimately going online and having their sentiments of being perpetual victims of modern woman by people who are making a lot of money off this demographic is not helping in the least.
Cool. Destiny.
I think that people make a mistake when they say like oppressed is the same as has a shitty time. I think that I don't think incels are oppressed. I don't think that ugly people are oppressed, because that implies there's some like external group that's like applying pressure or exploiting them. I think that it just sucks if you lack the social skills to find a significant other, or to talk to, in the case of incel men, to talk to women. That sucks, but I don't know if there's like an active campaign of oppression against these people, like institutional or implicit or otherwise.
All right. Wake.
So yeah, I think that while I may not go so far as to say oppressed, I would say that they face some systemic issues. Therapy, for one. A lot of therapists will refuse to see incels, especially female therapists. They just won't work with them at all, which limits the access that incels have towards what they need to help them, which is therapy. Therapy itself seems to not to have much of an effect on incels as well, likely for that reason as well as others. There's also a lot of overlap between neurodivergency and inceldom. There is a huge kind of a Venn diagram where these things combine. It absolutely is a marginalized group. Like, we don't use incel as an insult for nothing, right? Like, we use it all the time. It is very much a stigmatized group. It's something where you are not welcome in a lot of communities if you identify yourself as one, and for good reason in certain cases, right? These people need our help. Life has failed them, and they have made some poor choices in some cases. What that help looks like, I don't think the government should do programs or, assign girlfriends or anything. But I do think there needs to be at least a societal effort to help these young men, because it's a problem, and it's a problem for all of us.
All right. Thank you, Wick. Base.
So I think I do agree with a few of the people here that I would never use the word oppression for incels. I don't think they're oppressed, but they are certainly a marginalized group. As Wick said, you can use it as an insult. You can even end the conversation of any legitimate grievance you may have in any tough time you've had with dating or relationships by saying, "Oh, don't act like an incel." I mean, from that point alone, if people are just afraid to even voice their frustrations or even talk about how they feel, at least they be compared to like someone that's a killer, or be compared to someone that is unhygienic, who is ugly, otherwise unpleasant, then I would say absolutely, they're definitely marginalized people. As far as helping them is concerned, I think helping them comes in two ways. One, the incel has to help himself at first, but the other half has to come from the other half of our species, which is going to be some young ladies are going to have to work with some of these young men to table their expectations. I think everyone has to do something to solve this problem. So
thank you, sir. And then Lauren.
Yeah. Many people already got into it, the oppression marginalization issue. Yeah, obviously there's no laws oppressing people just because they're incels. However, they're marginalized in communities. They lack social skills. It's a really odd phenomenon that you come into the technological age, especially when you see apps like Tinder and other dating apps where women are frequently finding matches no matter what they look like, whereas men, a large percentage of them never get any matches whatsoever, and it's about 5 to 10% of the men who are getting 95% of the women. So there is definitely an issue with these people being marginalized, as opposed to how do we help them. I think a lot of the a lot of that has to do with technology. It's kind of like, once the genie's out of the bottle, how do you go back type thing. But I guess a lot of that would just have to be with being honest with them about what is causing them to not be sexually attractive to women, and working on the issues in society which are making men not very sexually attractive, in my opinion. In my opinion, and it is backed by research, but I have heard other people disagree, that it is lack of testosterone, and working on your masculinity can help.
All right, thank you. Nobody's used their shootout yet, just to let you guys know. Those are there so that if you want to have a back and forth with somebody without any interruptions, that's there. So you have 3 minutes uninterrupted with that person. Like I said, currently nobody's used them, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and kick it over to Smith. You seem to have the most disagreements with people, so we'll let you start it off.
Well, there's something that I think nobody's mentioned that I think is on my mind. I think you're probably all going to fucking disagree with me based on the last conversation. But I think that we really are, like, I think incels and incel adjacent, just lonely, isolated people, like women and men, but like incels are the men. They're like the driving factor of a lot of, especially entertainment economy, like and streaming and shit. They're like the proportion of people that are members of streaming audiences that are incels is greatly way higher than the number of people that are incels in any other type of place, like people at the fucking grocery store. Like they're online, they're watching ads, and I don't think we want to help them. We got red pill people telling them what to do. We got fucking blue pill people telling them what to do. I don't think anybody's actually trying to help them. We're all just exploiting them like a resource for their attention, and we're trying to get money from them.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing I find really interesting about the conversation with dating is how we oftentimes always frame the conversation that the young man here has done something wrong. But I find that really interesting because there's a other half of our species that also seems to be having a tough time having relationships. So my question is for all of you guys, why do we always frame the incel problem as something like they have to do specifically, like outside of anything else?
Because men are the one that are more miserable when they're single versus women.
Also, because women aren't having trouble getting laid. Men are the ones that are the incels.
All right, so women aren't having trouble getting laid, and you say what, Destiny? You say that women are what now?
Women tend to be a bit happier single than men.
All right, so even if that were the case, why are we still dismissing these young men needing help? And
I don't think anybody's dismissing them needing help. No, it was just the question of where should the help come from? Should it come from the men and they're trying to like improve themselves, or should there be charity from the women?
All right, so what exactly should the young men do in order to improve their position with women?
Improve social skills and work on people skills that they need to be more attracted to the opposite sex. Practice talking to them, practice flirting with them, practice those types of things.
And why do you think that but hold on, why do you think
watching streams
hasn't already come to these conclusions?
What? Well, it's, in my opinion, like being good with women is easy in the same way that like losing fat is easy. Like I think we all know what to do. It's just really hard to do it, right?
So you're saying that it's simple.
Yes. Okay. You stick a guy, you put him in an environment with a lot of women, and they talk to each other over a period of time. You learn how to do it, and that's how every single environment in all of human history's worked. It's why people in school fuck. It's why coworkers fuck. It's why anybody in like any community group of friends fuck. Like, yeah. But I think the issue is that like I think there are parts of our society that are like highly sexually dimorphic right now. So like for instance, if you are, let's say that you were like you were a nerdy kid in high school and grade school, you didn't talk to very many women because you were kind of shy. Then you go to like into comp sci in college, you've got 3 women in your class. The odds are even worse than fucking Tinder. And then from there, you start working at a tech company where there are also like 3 women working. You're in a really, really, really rough spot. You're no longer forced to be near women because you don't have school anymore. You're not going to be forced to be near any women at work because you work a tech job. And now like the opportunity for you to develop those socialization skills are like almost nothing. So I think it's a really rough spot to be in. Yeah.
Well, that's ultimately more. Well, go ahead.
So I was going to, in answer to your question, I was going to say that in terms of both incels and the wider society, it's laziness and fear. It's so much easier to just blame either incels for their problems, or it's so much easier for incels to blame women and society and feminism for their problems and to not do anything. It's the same with like the obesity epidemic. It's far easier to just blame everything else rather than actually do the work and take responsibility yourself. And it's also very scary. It's scary to interact with people. It's scary to interact with incels. It's human nature, unfortunately.
I don't think it has.
You're doing the person
assigning blame. I don't think it has to do with assigning blame. So you're saying that the incels blame the women, everybody who is looking at the incel problem blame the incels themselves and say that they have to fix it. But it has to do with the person who has the problem. It doesn't matter who's at fault. Society in general is probably at fault. Technology, just the way the world has developed, no in particular person or group of individuals is at fault. However, the people with the problem are the ones who aren't getting laid. So they're going to be the ones who have to figure out the solution. Now, should we help them as a society? I would like to help them as a society. What can we do? We have to encourage them to change things that would help them resolve their problem. So that's why they're the ones that have to make the change, not necessarily because they're the ones that caused the problem.
Two things, just real quick. Two things. I absolutely agree, right? That at the end of the day, like you asked, like why do we ask men to solve this problem? Because at the end of the day, the incel is the only one who can solve their problem. There is nothing that you, I, or society can do to help them become better at women if they are not willing to put in the work. I can't make someone skinny, but I can teach them how and the processes they need to go through in order to become so, to use that analogy. I think, though, that kidology is also right in that it's far easier just to blame society or blame others. And while at the end of the day, it is kind of a two-way street, you can only control your half of it. And if you even a guy with an ugly mug like me, right? If you can be personable and it's a skill you can learn, then you will up your odds. I do want to ask though, I wonder if we see this rise kind of in inceldom and loneliness in general across the board is due to the fact that we can't really flirt or date in work as we used to. That is highly discouraged these days for probably good reasons. And two, a lot of the communal infrastructure that we've had is just not there anymore or not used anymore. No one's going to church anymore. No one's going to the mall anymore. We're all isolated inside all the time. And I think that almost more than anything else is making it so that young men aren't learning how to socialize with women like they would have when I was growing up.
Definitely. And I think the worst part is dating apps, because dating apps ultimately cater to men as visual creatures. And so women go onto dating apps and they have to play this game, which really in real life, in terms of attraction, women don't play. Women don't find men like physically attractive, like from the get-go. It takes a long time, usually building a friendship over like a lot of communication.
No, I fundamentally disagree.
So yeah, well, can I just, it's not ultimately in the favor of men, even though ironically it was created for men, specifically for wealthy men to hook up. And so incels really need to get off of these dating apps, specifically Tinder, and get off this obsession, this really brain dead obsession with statistics from OkCupid and Tinder about looks and about attraction, because it isn't helping them. And it most definitely isn't helping women in terms of finding the men who they desire.
I think Tinder is awesome. I think we need to stop demonizing Tinder.
No, Tinder is awful.
People blaming Tinder, it's like people saying that like Magnum condoms suck because like most guys like can't fit into the Magnum condom. Just don't buy the Magnum condom. Nobody's forcing anybody to use Tinder if you don't want to. I don't know why people run onto Tinder where the ratios are, it's like, what is it, like 80% women? No, it's even, or I'm sorry, 80%.
No, it's
75%. It's even more
majority,
lopsided than that. It's like five. It's like five. Yeah, it's like 5-1. Right. So of course your odds there are going to be really, really, really bad. And then a lot of women on Tinder aren't even really meeting guys there anyway. Sometimes because they're too shy to meet, or they'll only swipe a little bit and then log off. Like, don't blame Tinder. There are a lot of guys who work tech jobs and don't meet women anywhere, and Tinder is literally their only outlet. And sometimes for them it does work. I got lots of because I used to do this thing where I got lots of emails from people like, hey, I work a tech job. I don't go out anywhere. I live in San Francisco. I met a few girls off of Tinder, and it actually worked for me. So I don't know why people are so relentless to shit on Tinder. If Tinder doesn't work for you, just don't use it. That doesn't mean we have to demonize it and blame all the other problems. Like if you get rid of Tinder, it doesn't magically fix any of the problems that we talked about. Not a single issue that we talked about goes away if we get rid of Tinder. It's all still the exact same.
No, okay, I'm going to use a shootout.
The issue would be
shootout or whatever with Destiny on this, because I think he's just wrong here. Well, I would agree, right, that we should absolutely. Is that how this works? I just say shootout and then I go. I don't know.
Yeah, you want.
Well, we respected it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I don't know. So
is that what you want?
Yeah. Okay, I'm doing it. I keep saying it. Like
I didn't hear you say it. I heard you say you wanted to talk to Destiny. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Shoot out. Yeah,
Destiny,
whatever.
3 minutes.
Okay. Fair enough. So I think that while you're right, Tinder isn't the sole factor at play. I think Tinder and companies like that absolutely incentivize people to get on them in a way that is unhealthy. And while we can't blame them entirely for doing this. They want to make money. We can point to it as kind of like an empty calorie effect, that it is advertised as a way to meet women, when in reality it does not work for most men, or at least doesn't work as it's advertised. And I think that's very harmful. I think that we should put some blame on Tinder for this, and on companies like Tinder, because they are misrepresenting their product, and they are creating their product to be addictive and draw people in and get you stuck there. And I think that's a problem.
No, I mean, like, most people, if you put in a little bit of work, can meet at least one person on Tinder. That's easily possible. I think it's totally fine to advertise it that way. There's a lot of guys who wouldn't meet girls otherwise who are able to meet girls on Tinder. I think it's totally fine. The app does exactly what it is supposed to do. Now, do men have trouble because there's a lot more men than women? Yeah, sure. But that's not a reason to demonize the product. And again, to reiterate the point I said before, if we get rid of Tinder, it doesn't fix or solve a single one of the problems that we were talking about before. It just makes the people that benefit from Tinder worse off.
I actually disagree. Again, speaking of Tinder, not as Tinder specifically, but all the
Wait,
apps,
which thing
like
do you
Tinder,
disagree with?
Bumble, the fact that if we got rid of it, that we would see no change. I don't think
Okay,
that's
what
true at
would
all.
improve
I
if we
think
got
that
rid
we
of
would
Tinder?
have so a lot of the times, especially young people that I've talked to, they go into Tinder instead of, not in addition to. So instead of going out and trying to meet women and interact with people in real life, they do so on Tinder as a kind of a shortcut.
I don't think this happens.
I think that
I totally
absolutely
disagree.
happens. This is
No.
something that,
If a guy gets invited to, I don't think there's ever been a time where a high school college kid is like, oh, I got invited to a party.
I'm
I
not
think I'm
talking
gonna
high
swipe
school.
Tinder instead.
I'm talking
Well, what are we
after high
talking about?
school. So after people get out of their house, go away from home, whether they go to college or in the workplace and these things, like, I think that a lot of them use Tinder as a substitute for going out, right? Or
Yeah, but like, let's
to.
say that we get rid of Tinder. Are all these tech guys going to start like going out to the bar to find women? No,
I
they're going to
think
sit on Discord and play League of
not
Legends.
insignificant portion would, actually. I think a not insignificant portion would, again, because they don't have that kind of false hope that these dating apps are giving them. They would
I don't
say,
think
okay,
anybody. No. I disagree. I
bootstrap
disagree with
up.
every single thing you say. I disagree. You say false hope. I feel like I hear relentlessly people shit on Tinder these days. Is there really a whole bunch of? I feel like the common thing I hear is Tinder is hopeless. I can never find anyone on Tinder. Where's all the false hope at? I totally disagree that if you knock out Tinder, that all of a sudden you're gonna be like, well, fuck, I can't swipe on Tinder anymore. I'm gonna go to the bar and try to raise up some chicks, or I'm gonna go down to the club and like dance a little bit. Like, I just totally disagree. I don't think that's happening. And if it is happening, then just tell people don't be a retard and wait for Tinder to get banned. Go do it now. There's no reason to wait. Just go do the rizzing if you're capable of doing it. Why would you wait for the app to get banned?
Because these apps, again, they're not like this passive thing that doesn't actually have an incentive to ensnare these young men. Like,
what is
this
the
false
incentive?
hope, right, that we're talking about is Tinder advertising and these other sites advertising themselves.
Bro,
as,
I'm going to be honest
this is
with
how
you.
you do it in the modern society.
Love sex. I hook up a lot. I don't think I've ever seen an advertisement for Tinder in my life. Where are all these Tinder ads at? I mean, I'm sure they're out there.
Everybody's unmuted.
Okay. I don't even know where that. I mean, I'm sure there's some out there, but I don't know if I've ever seen an ad for Tinder ever. I'm sure it exists. However,
I've seen the TikToks of people ripping them up.
Yeah, but the long and short of it, Tinder has kind of earned the stigma that it has. I think one thing that's really important about a lot of these dating apps in general is the fact that a lot of the men who are successful are funneled up at the top, which means the vast majority of men, not just in ratio as far as like 30 or, I'm sorry, be like 25 to 75 of men, or maybe even like 40 to 60 on Bumble or even on Hinge. The long and short of it is women funnel up to the same type of men in all of these platforms. This is also seen in OkCupid. I know Kidology wanted to dismiss this, but the reality is a lot of women are trying to date the same type of men on these platforms. And also we have to factor in that there's not enough women on these platforms from start to finish. Even if every single woman paired off, they're still just men who just will not be selected just off just literally the user base. Now, I think one thing that's actually really interesting and important to kind of note is, again, despite the fact that women have all of these options on these dating apps, they still funnel up to the top 10 to 5%. Why is that? Well, I think the answer is found in a lot of different red pill talking spaces. It's because these men are usually more attractive. These men usually have more status. These men usually have more resources. So these are just the first three tenets, let alone we can talk about different type of riz, life experience. These men probably are more charismatic because they've had more experience.
But this can literally completely be explained. It can be completely be explained by the ratio.
But hold on. But even, okay, it would actually be more damning for women if we look at the ratio. If there's a wider pool of men to select from and women still funnel up to the smaller amount, we have to start asking, why are they funneling up when they have all these different options? Why aren't these women being promiscuous with the vast majority of men in the first
because the selective pressure is on the men there. If there's 10 men in a room all going for one girl and there's one girl there, why would you expect her to be like, wow, I can choose any guy I want. I'm going to choose this fucking weirdo who's 2 out of 10.
Because she likes having sex. What's the problem?
She doesn't need to choose she doesn't need to choose
so I can be with anyone.
She doesn't need to choose the random low-rated guy to have sex though, because she's got the pick of the litter.
But she can have sex with all of them. Why does she
women
funnel up to the top?
Because Tinder works for women.
This is very important.
Am I allowed to call it?
No, your shootout got taken when Wick.
That's true.
I stole it. I stole his shootout. Hell yeah.
Extremely important. And in fact, it kind of proves the point that women are indeed shallow people. I think we can move away from this myth that women are not shallow. They are. In fact,
no, they're just as shallow as us.
Exactly. No, if we're on Tinder and they're swiping based on looks, based on the profile, they're not asking about the man's character.
Ziku, if you were in a room,
women were competing for you.
If you were in a room,
women were competing for you, and you had the same option, you would do the same thing.
10 women. Why would you not choose the best looking one, the most attractive one?
The question isn't would men do the same thing. That's not the question. The fact is women are doing this thing. So it doesn't matter if men will do it too.
But that's because of the ratio, like Destiny just said. It's because of the situation.
Here's the problem. It's not just because of the ratio. Because as Destiny just said, they could just leave Tinder. Here's the thing though. They can leave Tinder and they can still go to the bar, and a similar thing will happen. They will have men try to approach them and they'll select the men that they want. So again, what are the metrics of which they select men? It's going to be physical attractive on one level. If you want to say it's not the most important,
because the Tinder works for women like a shopping list. Okay, Tinder works for women like a shopping list. It's inhuman. You're looking at men like men, okay? But when you go to a bar, you've got 5 men there. You've got 5 men there, and one of them's gonna charm you. But like on Tinder, you can like literally spam like forever, like look at like 1,000 men in like an hour, and it's literally like.
This is what's interesting. You guys are actually trying to argue with me that women don't find men physically and sexually attractive. And what metric do they pick or select men? Okay, so you agree with that, right?
I agree that they find men sexually attractive, but also
people find
women have the luxury of factoring other things into their equation, which is something I think men should start doing. Men should stop valuing women only by their appearance and start valuing them in a way that women value men, because women get a lot more out of that deal.
This is what I love about the incel conversation, because we love to pretend that men are just sexual beasts who only wish to have sex. That is not true at all. Men want to be loved by women. They want to actually have relationships with them. Why do you think in the courtshipping and any advice you guys give to young men, what do you tell them to do? You tell them to have confidence. You tell them to groom themselves. You tell them to look physically attractive. That's the first and foremost thing. You then go on to tell them that they should have a nice personality. They should be kind-hearted. They should be sweet. They should have chivalry. You tell these men more about their characters and virtue when you give them dating advice. Why would these men do that if they just want to have sex? If anything, would they not be like Destiny and just say, well, maybe you should just be, a sex worker and I'll just pay for it? Why is it that men go the route of trying to earn and court women if they simply just wanted to have sex with them?
That was a whole journey through 4 different topics.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, we're going to try to get some other people involved real quick. Kidology, do you have anything you want to add to this?
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating hearing men telling women how women think, and it's. I think that's the most unattractive thing in a lot of these conversations, which men don't really appreciate because it's always reduced to it ultimately being about looks. But
I love when women tell me what they think is attractive to try to control me. Once again, leveraging their sexuality to kind of control men.
True, actually, based. And not manipulative at all.
I mean, Kidology, you've said before that you identify as an incel. Is that still true?
Yes, I'm involuntarily celibate. Yes, but I don't blame anybody else for that except myself.
Wait, you're involuntarily celibate?
Oh no, you're about to go down a whole rabbit hole.
You can't get laid.
No, I can't. I blame myself entirely.
Girl, I'm gonna make tonight.
Oh no, stop! Don't do it! Don't go down this rabbit hole.
A Tinder profile with your face and like make a cute little bio, and I'm just gonna start swiping. And girl, I promise you, I could get you laid.
that happens.
Well, it's not about getting
incels
laid.
did that to me, actually.
Actually,
Because
let me
that's-
help Kidology out here. I'm going to help Kidology out here. I'm going to come to her defense because this
I
is
was
a
going to
defense
say
of all
that.
incels.
Oh, I thought you were gonna. Okay,
actually.
yeah.
No, it's not a shootout, but I'm going to help her out because when it comes to the incel conversation, we oftentimes reduce it to men just want to have sex. And that's why the very first thing that you asked her, Lauren, was why don't you just go on Tinder? You can just swipe and you can just, but that's not what she desires. What she wants is an actual long-term relationship. As such is what a lot of young men want in the first place.
No, an incel implies like somebody who you typically a man, but somebody who cannot involuntarily celibate.
That's true. I actually think that it's a silly word, but I use it colloquially because you guys understand it. But the truth of the incel is that it is not simply I can't have sex. It's I want to have a relationship. Now, sure, there's some men that probably fit that, of course, but that's not the main group of these young men. When you go and you talk to them, you find that they want to have long-term relationships.
Kidology, are you waiting until like marriage or love or something to have sex?
Oh,
are you waiting for marriage or love or something before you have sex?
No, not necessarily. No, it just hasn't happened. So it's primarily to do with like my situation, my circumstances. I think the men that I interact with, my demographic, being a racial minority has definitely contributed to that. So yeah.
Wait, you're hot. Shut the fuck up. What are you like? I don't think.
I mean, it's not about how I look. It's about a lot more than that. I think this is one thing that incels also get wrong. They think that it's all about how they look, and that ultimately that's why they can't get, woman in relationships. When a lot of it is about personality. It's about characteristics.
Okay,
about traits.
I understand men having trouble getting laid, even if they're a good-looking man, if they have like a bad personality. Or
Why can you understand that actually?
Because women are choosier. However,
based on what?
Men will fuck a hot piece of fruit. So you're telling me that you can't get like, I don't understand how a woman could be an incel. That doesn't make like men will fuck literally anything.
Well, I still think that's
but what you're saying is, that there's something's wrong with her, and she's also saying something's wrong with her. So
I'm not
exactly.
Yeah, and also men aren't choosy. Men just look at looks. That's all, and she's hot.
That's not true. That's not. It's not that men just look at looks. First of all, that's what people do. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go on.
Sorry. I mean, that's not true at all. I mean, I've been for about 3 months. I was going out with this guy, like 3 months up till now. I was going out with this guy. In terms of looks, I'm a lot better looking than he is. And he ghosted me about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, because you wouldn't fuck him after 3 months.
No, it wasn't because I wouldn't F him after 3 months. It's because it's because he said something very inappropriate, and I pushed back, and he didn't like that. So there you go.
That seems a little more detail would need to be.
I've known him
really
for 3 months. I'm not saying that there was like sort of like it developed into things, but ultimately, yes, I think relationships are not as cut and dry as it is presented for most people.
Yeah, perhaps they might not be, but I think the problem I have with this conversation as a first mover, right? Well, there's actually two. The first is that young men always have to do like something like to change, right? And we assume that these men haven't done that and they haven't tried that. That's the first thing. But the second thing is we pretend that women aren't shallow in some areas. That women don't want men that are sexually attractive.
This actually brings something up though. And something that get lost in this conversation because it is so male focused is that the loneliness rates among women are also skyrocketing. It's a problem, and it's not gendered, right? I think it manifests in different ways between men and women, right?
Wait, hold on. I don't think that's true.
I think it is true.
I thought that over COVID, wasn't it something like wasn't it like over 50% of young men reported having less than one person, meaning 0 people to talk to during COVID? And for women, wasn't that number like 20%? Wasn't it way lower?
But they're both trending up, is what I'm saying.
Sure, they might both be trending up, but I think the problem is significantly higher in terms of men maintaining fulfilling relationships versus women. They might be both trending up a little. Although those
having someone to speak to doesn't mean the relationship is fulfilling.
Actually, this is from 2022. On a general scale, women have reported having higher levels of loneliness than men. So how that translates into the number of women who feel lonely, I'm not sure. But the women who do feel lonely report feeling
Shoot
it
the
at
link
a
in chat.
higher
I'm curious.
level
I'll read
than
it.
men,
Go.
so.
I'm just curious. Shoot me.
Especially the older that women get. I mean, women over 50 are basically the most demonized and ignored group of demographic of people, but nobody cares about them, obviously.
Well, I don't think that's even true. I'm pretty sure it's men that reach those ages because they kill themselves like greater than any other cohort, I think, in the entire United States. I don't know about it. Maybe it's different in the UK, but
that's because men are more successful at suicide attempts. It doesn't mean that they.
That's because men want to kill them. If you don't kill yourself when you try to kill yourself, it's because you don't want to kill yourself. Men kill themselves more because they want to kill themselves.
Well, no, it also depends on the method. Men use guns more
because
so
they
than
want to die. Nobody that wants to die eats Benadryl. Okay, men kill themselves more because they want to kill themselves.
How do you know this? Do you know what's going on in a woman's head when she's because you don't?
Because like 52% of women are already on antidepressants. They know what these medications do. Okay, eating 10 Benadryl is not the way to kill yourself. If you want to kill yourself, you'll kill yourself. You'll find a way to do it. There's plenty of things in life that can kill us if you really want to die.
Men are better at a lot of things. Killing themselves is just another thing.
Just another way.
Yeah, we could just argue that women are so low IQ that they're
but here's the thing: we keep obfuscating this one thing, right? So again, when it comes to the problem, we say it's really male focused and like men have to do like something. Now, another thing that really gets me about this conversation is there's so much pushback on the red pill when it quite ironically is the young men doing the something, and that something is working on the way they look, working on their status, working on the money they can obtain. If this is the case that men have to do something, and that is the something they have to do to be successful with women, why is there so much pushback on anything that comes to the red pill if it is successful with women?
Base, I agree with you for the most part, which is why I agree with most of the red pill movement. Like a lot of it is about, you know, getting your ass up, making more money, which means like going to get an education, getting a better job, working out, getting swole, whatever. But where people start getting really turned off is when they are going down the misogyny route. And I am slow to use that word. I really am.
Mm-hmm. But what we have there.
It is.
Yeah, do you think?
But here's the thing, though, right?
Zico, do you think we're mad that people are telling people to work out more or to do more hygiene? Do you think that's the problem people have with the red pill movement? No one has that problem with like I can talk to the most leftist person I know. They don't have a problem with giving men advice and how to better their circumstances when it comes to like going to the gym or eating healthy or learning to talk to women. That's not the problem we have with the red pill. The problem, as Lauren alluded to, was
also just a heads up. Wick, I don't know if you read this link you sent me, but basically this entire link is about how men are more lonely than women.
Did I send you the wrong one? Oh, hold on.
Well, I mean, like you highlighted one sentence.
I'll have to. Like I said,
his point is that women are becoming lonelier too. He's made the point; it's trending upward. So
I don't know where that data is. That might
be.
He
might have.
I remember seeing that.
Greater point,
but it's still lopsided, but it's going up. But that makes sense because we're just all on our phones. We're all isolated. Where the communities are disappearing. It makes sense that like the same reasons that there are more incels, there would be more lonely women. It's just that women are more in demand because men seek out women and women get to select from all the men seeking them out. So it makes sense. It would still be easier for them, but it still would be more lonely women in the long run too.
Mm-hmm. So it would appear to me that usually when people have an issue with the red pill, one of the common complaints is the hypocrisy of the so-called high-value males who kind of use and disregard women. And as such, I disagree with them fundamentally, but that's more a moral issue. That's a virtue problem. That's an issue with what should you do when you become a man that's attractive to women. But again, my problem is whenever we bring up these topics, like we pretend that we're not talking about becoming a shallow person that is physically attractive to women, and that these men here don't understand this, and that they're not trying and they're not failing in many different other ways, and that there's nothing else that young ladies can do to kind of bring the scale back to balance, that men just have to keep doing more and more and more. The question is, why is it that the other half of the species, young ladies, shouldn't be trying to help young men, the other half of their species that they want to have relationships with?
This is what I think. I think men should demand more of women and stop being so fucking stupid and just, oh, I only care about young pretty girls. I'm gonna just try to fuck pretty 22-year-olds. No, try to take some fucking notes from women that are more selective, that don't just fuck like the some cute fuck boy. They like, oh, I want a guy who has some skills and some experience. You know, you should have the same things about women. You should try to date women that are actually gonna like not be a drag and actually make your life a little bit better because they have something to offer.
If this were the case, why do so many women constantly complain about the fuckboy or bad toxic relationships they have? If women are
Because they're
selecting
fucking
these
them.
type of men, wouldn't they all just be happy? There'd be no
Okay,
complaining.
this is okay. I had a lot of success on Tinder, but I hate Tinder. But I had a lot of success getting laid, but I never was able to find like lasting relationships on Tinder. I was only able to find those in other places, but it was really easy for me to get laid. So yeah, sure, like women are fucking these like, because I mean, when I was using Tinder a lot, I was absolutely like a fucking massive fuck boy. I don't even think I probably wasn't even fucking relationship material.
Well, if you were a massive fuckboy, why are you complaining you didn't find relationships? That means you weren't looking for them. You were just
I'm admitting. Well, I started
Yeah,
learning those
yeah.
skills once I stopped being a fuckboy on Tinder. You know.
So you think that okay? So like, what did you bring your experience for?
What do you mean?
I just wanted
Why
to
did
say
you
that he
bring
got
up
laid on
the
Tinder.
example?
He just
No,
wanted to say he got laid
I'm
on.
saying.
Yeah.
It's just
also
it's
have
one of those
sex.
humble
I would like
brags.
to put that out there. I'd like to submit that to the panel. I am a sex haver as well. by the way.
Verified
Go ahead.
sex haver. Let's
I was
go.
saying that I was saying that women will
Kidology
fuck
out.
women will fuck like undateable guys that are just like these fuckboys that are good at Tinder and they have Tinder game and shit, but they're not like relationship material.
Yeah, but the whole point of wait, when we say okay, I don't know if we're using these words the right way. When we say fuckboy, a fuckboy is somebody that misrepresents themselves as relationship material. That's the whole point of being a fuckboy.
Oh. No, I
Not
just was
necessarily.
like, you know,
It's
I was just like
with male.
Yes, necessarily a fuckboy.
Okay, well, I wasn't lying about myself. I just wasn't like, you know, I was the user, not the keeper. You know, that wasn't
okay.
the
Gotcha. Okay, we're just using the words differently. Generally, when people refer to fuckboys, they're talking about people that are misrepresenting their intentions in order to have sex with women. It's a fuckboy isn't just like a promiscuous man. That's just a guy that.
Okay,
fucks.
well,
I've never heard that.
Well, then it would make
definition,
sense.
but-
It would make sense that women would have sex more with guys that are lying about themselves on Tinder and shit, because it's easier to lie about yourself on Tinder than in real life.
I guess, but that would still preclude all the other things being laid bare. You can't just lie and say, "Oh, wait, I'm actually 6 foot tall," and it turns out you're like 5'3".
No, but you're
Other
lying about like,
elements
the
have to
things
be
you're looking
present
for
there.
in life, how many people you fucked, if you're ready to settle down, if you want to have kids, like stuff like that. Like these are the things you're lying about when you're a fuckboy.
Perhaps, but is like, are women truly just being duped by these men? There's
a lot of
no
cases,
ability for
yeah.
them to discern who these men are.
lot
None
of-
at
There is
all.
an ability to discern. The ability comes with age and experience, of course. That's why all these red pill guys want women that are 20 years old because they're too stupid to pick the fuckboys out.
I actually think that's probably more of them being shallow than they're being too stupid to pick them out. Because the
No,
question
that
is,
it's
what
literally
you've just
verbatim what
done
they
actually,
say.
what you've actually just did is infantilize women and just admitted they have a lack
hold
of
on, yes,
ability
I
to
do-
understand the type of
infantilize-
men who aren't
yes.
actually going to be the men that could be in
Yes,
relationships.
I do infantilize 20-year-old women because they are children. That is correct. Yes.
So 20-year-old women, at one point, okay, hold on.
20-year-old women are too dumb to pick up. So are 20-year-old men. But I mean, like, that's the reality. You learn as you get older, of course. What do you mean? I
make your
infantilize
bad
people
decisions
that are
when
late
you're younger,
teens
yeah.
and early
Yeah,
20s. Yeah, of course. That's everybody. Yeah, of course. I was a fucking idiot when I was in my early 20s. Yeah.
Oh, okay, but hold on. So then why are some people successful and other people aren't then, Destiny? Like we have like Ben Shapiro. He knew exactly what he wanted when he was younger. Why do we have some people who are able to get into relationships and maintain them?
Because Ben Shapiro's life is on rails, dude.
Didn't
Ben
he
Shapiro
want
had
to be
an
a violinist?
And he had an amazing family. She had an amazing family. They had an amazing background. They had good relationship training from their parents. They probably had a whole bunch of religion. They had a whole bunch of shit that went right. And probably a healthy degree of luck as well. Oh, sorry, I thought you wanted me to answer the question. My bad.
The problem isn't being dumb then. The problem is a lack of opportunity.
Ben Shapiro now, I bet you if you asked him, he would say this. I would bet some money on this. Ben Shapiro now is a smarter, wiser Ben Shapiro than when he was 20.
I don't know. But that's funny. He's asking how at 20 did he figure it out. Some people at 20 get lucky. There are some people that marry as high school sweethearts. It happens. But in general, you have some bad relationships. You learn what to avoid. And then you get older and then you don't fall for the same traps. For guys, it might be getting attracted to crazy girls that lie about being on birth control. For girls, it might be being attracted to tall bad boys with questionable histories, but they really want to settle down with me because I'm special, right? Like everybody learns these things as you get a little bit older. That's what happens.
Well, quite ironically, they don't, because the incels seem to not be able to figure it out, for one. But for two,
because they're not having enough experiences.
Because they're not having the experience. Yeah.
Well, okay, so then one, how are we even supposed to help these guys out in the first place if they're not having the experiences? But two, why again are we pretending that women can't ascertain who's going to be a good partner and who isn't?
I already said, for one, it's because the only way to do it is to be in spaces with women. You can't train.
You can't read a book. Hold on, Destiny. You can't read a book. You can't talk to older people that have actually had successful relationships. You only have to have bad relationships to learn them.
That's generally how you learn. You learn through relationships. I mean, you can have better relationships modeled for you, and then you can start off on a better foot, of course. People coming from an abusive household probably have to learn a whole lot more than people come from really, really healthy households.
But that would be pretty obvious, right?
We got about
that's
5
why I
minutes
just said
left
it,
on this topic.
But it's
Women
not a
are able
binary
to-
thing. It's not like you either know everything, you don't know anything, but you learn a little bit as you grow. Hold on, are you really fighting me on the idea that you can learn to avoid like harmful types of relationships by having some relationship experience? Are you really fighting on that point?
I'm fighting that it is
30-year-old women,
necessary for this to be the case.
30-year-old women have better pick better men than fucking 20-year-old women.
But
like,
even
like
I don't
the
even know if
women
you
you're
can
talking
even
about are 20 years
substantiate that.
old.
But here's the problem. One, we have to substantiate that. You guys just say, "Oh, well, they have experience now; they pick better." Is that the case? Is that true? Where would we even
if they're
come to
still
this
single.
conclusion? Especially if they're still single. Number one, are you saying that there are no other good men that they could have picked after they got to this point?
If you do something more, you were better at it.
That is the hope that that be the case. What I'm saying is that is not what we see in practice. We are not saying that women are going through all these bad relationships and then they end. Ironically, I'm not saying that they're just stupid. You guys are saying that they're
evil.
Just stupid,
You're saying that
they have
evil.
to have these bad relationships to learn. They can't learn from any other source. They can't learn.
Okay,
from
so
their parents.
like,
They can't learn
here's
from
like
their
a
friends.
random stat. It seems like the average woman gets married at 27 years old. Does that not imply that she needed a couple relationships first to figure out what she really wanted?
Actually, it could imply that she waited to get married after she finished schooling. We don't know. We just have a stat. Like, why is she waiting? We don't know. You can't just say she waited. Therefore, it's because she had to learn through bad relationships.
Lauren, what was your solution for incels?
Well, okay, I was saying that it is their responsibility to solve. It is their problem, even if it's not their fault. So it is their responsibility to solve it. However, that doesn't mean that society in general should leave them behind to resolve their issue on their own. I think a lot of the solutions can be made in school. We can provide more social classes. We could provide more opportunities for children to actually socialize and learn socializing techniques and learn therapeutic behaviors to help them interact with society better. And also the dangers of being addicted to technology and apps that make you socially inept.
Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and end that topic there. We'll go through closing statements real quick. So we'll start with Wick.
Yeah. This is a difficult situation because the solution is simple, but it is hard to accomplish. It's hard to help them as well for a couple reasons. A lot of them are resistant to help because they're bitter. They want to blame everyone else. But also, much like trying to teach your older relatives technology, it's not something they're familiar with, and it's very frustrating to do. So often you give up or pawn it on to someone else. Trying to teach someone who is an incel how to relate and work with women in a way that is personal and helpful is equally as frustrating. They will resist you. The simple concepts you try to get across to them become very hard to do so. And so a lot of people just don't help them because it's very frustrating to do. We need to change that. We need to, and I wish we had talked more about solutions. We need, as a society, to destigmatify being an incel. We need that not to be an insult anymore, and we need to help these young men and young women too, if that happens to be the case, learn how to get what they want out of life. That's all.
Awesome. Destiny.
What is even the closing statement on this? I don't even. We talked about like 20 things. People need to be in warm spaces. If you're an incel and you're trying to get women, I mean, like Tinder's probably not going to work well for you. You have to practice talking to women, and you need to find warm spaces where you can develop social skills by talking to women without like just trying to fuck them either. Like friendships with women are probably the first step to learning how to fuck women. And if you skip that step in grade school, high school, college, then you got to find some other way to develop it post college.
All right. Base, you had me going for a second there. KIDOLOGY had said that she can't get laid, and you immediately jumped in and said, I think I can help KIDOLOGY out. I thought you were propositioning her on the panel for a second. That was going to be a first.
We've tried it before. We could probably stand to chat more often, but no, I mean,
yeah, definitely. We talk with
yeah, exactly. Like we're familiar. So I understand her plight better than most is what I was saying. I could articulate it. That's all. But
all right, let's hear your closing statements, sir.
So my closing statements are I think a lot of people do understand that the incel does need to work on himself. And I would actually go the extra step and say it's not simply just working on your physical attributes like with good hygiene, and it's not simply just having a good personality when you go talk to someone. You actually need to focus on your virtue and the purpose behind having a relationship and why you want to be with the woman in the first place, which I think is very important, because I'm going to tie it all together. It's interesting to me that Destiny says the reason why a lot of these women have these bad relationships is just inexperience and the fact that they just don't know the correct model. They have to learn through bad experiences. The truth of the matter is, one, lots of trauma with these women ends up damaging them. A lot of them don't recover from this trauma. A lot of them don't become better people, and they don't end up then selecting better men. We see a lot of it on Kevin Samuel's old shows.
What does this have to do with incels?
It has a lot to do with incels, right? Because women are the other half of the equation. When it comes to it, we need to have, I'm telling you, if you allow me to finish, I'm going to bring it all together, you know? So what's important is what we have is a system where we only tell men that they have to rise to the occasion and they have to keep doing more and more and more. And then we pretend that there's not the other half that has these expectations that these men have to continue to keep reaching. That is exactly what is going on in a lot of cases. There's a lot of trauma that a lot of young women have that bars them, a lot of young men, from even being good and even being able to enter these relationships as well in the first place. What is interesting is we always keep stopping with these men have to do something, and these men know they have to do something because there's a whole red pill ideology of which they know they have to work on their money and their status and whatnot that a lot of people then argue against. What we saw here is you guys argued against just the first principle that women want men who are physically attractive. Like, we can't even get past that. So until we can actually start having a more honest conversation, honest discussion, that is, some women are shallow and some women don't seek out actually good virtues that will help them have a long-term relationship, we can only fix one half of the problem. Men need to become better. Well, great job. They already know this. When are we going to get the young ladies to come meet them on the other side and also do something to become better?
All right. Thank you, sir. Lauren.
Okay. Just, I guess we're in closing, but I just have to wrap up with what Base just said. It's not, the women are not the ones with the problem. It is the men who are the ones with the problem. It's not that anyone needs to get better, but women are not struggling with the lack of sex or struggling in any resolve whatsoever. The people who are struggling are the incels. Now, as they resolve themselves and as, not resolve, but as the issue gets better and as they work on social ineptitudes and they become more capable of dealing with women, that will resolve any issue that there was in society in the first place. So
no offense, but you just did the thing that I just
hold
described.
on, you gotta let her go through her closing statement.
Ooh,
sorry, I just did
woman moment.
You just did the thing.
She did the woman thing.
No, you did the thing where you said the men
thing.
have to do something, and then but it's not women. Women don't have to do anything. That is
no, I'm not saying that
That's
women don't have to do something. What I'm saying is that it's not like women who are currently struggling. It's the
this
men
is why we
who
need
are
Kevin Samuels
struggling.
back.
Well, exactly, because they literally called in the Kevin Samuels show. They are struggling.
Not
But,
interrupting.
I'm sorry.
Not interrupting other panelists' closings. Challenge level impossible.
Okay, so when it comes to the immediacy problem of the lack of sex, women are not struggling with that problem. As men resolve their issues with their, then that's going to create new issues in society, and then women have their loneliness issues, which also need to be resolved. And even though they're interwoven, they're separate, and it's not about blame, it's about resolving the actual issue at hand. The issue with incels is their incapabilities of dealing in society, their basically their autismness, their inability to connect with women and people in general. A lot of this has to do with technology, and this is a large societal issue, but in order for you to resolve the large societal issue, you have to look inward at yourself, and the people with the problem are the ones who have to, in the end, resolve the problem. I guess that could be encouraged through classes such as in high school, having more opportunities for socializing, longer lunch breaks, more proms and dances and stuff like this. But in the end, it's still a men's issue.
All right, Smith.
Okay, I agree with Bass that it is more than just a men's issue. It's a double-sided problem. It's a societal issue I think that men are the ones that are dealing with it, but I think if we want to change it, we have to change some of the things that we've been leaning on for so long. I think that if you want to do, I think his solution is to like do kind of the red pill thing and you play into it. So men need to be better, but also blame women because women are shallow and all that. But I don't agree with that. What I think is that you have to. I think women are gatekeeping being loved or the object in the relationship between men and women. And if we want men to know how to be loved and how to experience that kind of intimacy, we have to be willing to love men. And we don't really love men. We just want men to be automatons that we exploit for their physical labor. And we want women to be like people that we exploit for their emotional and their sexual labor. And we still have not bridged that gap.
All right. And then Kidology.
Well, yes, I agree with Baz on most things. I think that incels, even if they are not necessarily oppressed in the way that some other groups are, I think that they definitely feel oppressed. And we should acknowledge that, and we should understand why, and try to understand and grapple with why they feel that way. I think in terms of helping them, it ultimately comes from not just help on the side of mental health services, like therapy, which I think really needs to come a long way to sort of meet incels and meet the current sort of understanding and data about inceldom and their demographic. But I think importantly, incels need to also stop victimizing themselves perpetually and ultimately justifying sort of the state that they find themselves in and projecting all that blame onto everybody else. I think that, for instance, I think another issue is that we ultimately reduce the problems that a lot of young men and women face today with regards to intimacy, to sex, like to celibacy, being involuntarily celibate. And I think that's wrong. I think, well, at least most women have bad sex more so than good sex. Most women have undergone some kind of sexual trauma or sexual assault. And I think men also ultimately reduce like sort of happiness to having an orgasm or whatever they see in pornography. And I think we need to have more honest conversations about a sort of, I think, a sort of philosophy behind sexual intimacy with another person. I think that we have really lost something there. I mean, not that we've ever had it, but I think we sabotage ourselves in reducing everything to a lack of sex and just seeing sex as the ultimate goal, when there is so much more to that equation and so much more to the relationships that will actually make us potentially happy.
All right. Thank you, Kidology. So here is our third and last topic. Do women have more fulfilling relationships than men? And should men mimic women's relationships? This one, we're going to go ahead and start with Destiny for your opening statement. You got 1 minute, sir.
If we're talking friendships, it seems like men have difficulty communicating or expressing emotion or feeling in friendships. That has to do with that thing for COVID I saw. I don't remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure that like over COVID, like men reported having way fewer people to have like emotionally in-depth conversations with than women did. Women seem to be on average happier with the quality of the emotional depth that their friendships have, and men seem to not have that same depth. So I think that there are some pointers. I don't know if I would say like copy women as much. I don't think women have like a monopoly on not being emotionally retarded. I think that men could probably do a little bit better at communicating feelings openly and honestly with other male friends, because it seems like we have a really big, difficult time with that.
All right. Kidology.
Not necessarily. No, I think that there is, at least based on my reading and thinking about this, there is this myth, I think, that women have better relationships than men. Recently, I think it was last year, a study of 50,000 like sort of men's and women's relationships and sort of satisfaction reports were compiled and analyzed. And they found that men and women had sort of equal satisfaction levels. And I think the issue is that when it comes to relationships between men and women, like especially in marriage and relationships, things seem to change in terms of things becoming a lot more emotionally dependent on women, and the man sort of steps back into his sort of Madonna complex and into enjoying having a woman doing a lot of the satisfaction as opposed to him. So I think that I don't think it is that men need to mimic women's relationships. I think men need to I think we all need to encourage each other and in relationships with each other to do a lot more in terms of recognizing other people and a bit more self-awareness.
All right, Lauren, 1 minute.
Sorry if I ramble. Yeah, I was just gonna say, when you look at the term fulfilling, that doesn't necessarily mean there's a lot, because Destiny mentioned more, like men have fewer. I don't really think that has anything to do with the fulfillingness. Where you look at like absences of relationships, for instance, when a father is absent, this seems to have an extremely impactful effect, especially upon a son. So like when you look at father-son relationships versus mother-daughter relationships, it seems when you look at the impacts on life, that relationship actually has more weight and importance. And then I would also say just brothers versus sisters, there always seems to be stronger relationships there. So if you're breaking it down to familial aspects as opposed to just friendship aspects, I think that changes it. And then as for whether or not men should mimic women's relationships, no, we have different societal standards. We have different ways that we've developed relationships as a society. And I think that men need to stay masculine. So no.
All right, Smith.
I think that, I don't know about relationships themselves, but I think that men need to not maybe mimic, but men need to learn from the roles that women take in relationships and adapt some of those things into their own roles. They need to be able to take from relationships some of the things that women take from them, and women need to take some of the things from relationships that men take from relationships. And I think we're like quartering ourselves off to specific, like what KIDOLOGY said. She said like men slip back into this Madonna complex role, and they get all their enjoyment from the experience of the woman and stuff. And I think that we need to be more holistic, and we need to because I mean the incels have already stepped into their Madonna complex. It's just they're doing it with their waifu and they don't even have a girlfriend. So
all right, Wick.
Yeah, I think that men and women both, right, people in general need at some point to learn how to be happy, right? Once you learn that, your relationships will be fulfilling. I think this is a problem that's internal in nature in a lot of cases. Yes, it could be absolutely affected by external forces and things like that. It's a lot easier to be more fulfilled or happy when you're in a good financial situation, for example. But I think overall, there are some people you will meet who will never be happy regardless of their circumstances. And I think that's because they've never learned how. I think it's a skill. I think it's something that we can learn and something that we could try to do. Whether women are more happy in general, I don't know. I think I take issue with the genderification of this. I think this is something that we just need to teach people. Anyway, that's my statement.
All right, and base 1 minute, sir.
So, honestly, I do not think that women have more fulfilling relationships than men. I'm not really sure how you could really quantify that. The data I think Destiny gave us is more self-reported than anything, so I don't know why we just should believe them because they say they're more happy than the men. They could easily be lying there. I don't know if we can really extrapolate anything really substantial from that. Unfortunately, just based on my own personal experience, I've chatted with a lot of women over my lifetime, and they don't seem to be doing any better than the young men that I've chatted to in my lifetime. They seem to also be dealing with a lot of depression and loneliness and sadness. And the interesting thing is, I've chatted with some women that have had great friendships, and I've had great friendships with some young men. So I don't really know if you can really gender the conversation. And I also don't know if there's really any data we could use to really substantiate this. It seems pretty subjective whether someone's relationship is fulfilling or not.
All right. Destiny, if you want to go ahead and kick us off, good sir.
Why do I have to kick us off?
Because you were the one who had like the most disagreement with everybody else here.
I feel like from an early age, I feel like women are taught socially to work through emotions quite a bit. I think that men aren't really taught as much to work through our emotions. I think that from a very early age, women just get better social training than men. And as a result of that, I think that carries over to a lot of relationships that they have for friendships. I think there's a famous, either Chris Rock or it might be Dave Chappelle had the joke where it's like a woman comes back from seeing a girl or a guy and she's like, oh, I did this and I felt like this and blah, blah, blah. And a guy comes back and he's just like, we went to Denny's, it was 7 a.m. and we did this. And then that was it. And then that's it. Like, I think in general, I think that joke kind of encapsulates like the nature of male friendships versus female friendships. Like, I think this is, I'm just anecdotal. I'm just guessing. Like, I feel like a guy is more likely to be like, oh yeah, like John, like I'm really good friends with him. Like we chat like once every 2 years to just like catch up. Like, I feel like it's a really guy thing to say. Whereas like women tend to be more keeping up with like familial connections and keeping up with friends and having more emotionally fulfilling conversations.
I don't know, but that seems a little bit more trivial, right? If I talk to John after 2 years and everything is great and wonderful and we can still be open and emotional, wouldn't that reflect how strong our friendship is despite the time?
Yeah, if you're
no, because it means in 2 years you haven't shared any like. I mean, like I can say it's an acquaintance you can talk to, but it's not somebody that you're relying on for any kind of like emotional or life support, right?
But it would be if this is my friend I just talked to. It's been 2 years, and now we're opening, we're talking to each other, we're catching up. Let's say life has brought us apart from each other, and we came back, and we're still equally as emotional as we were before. Wouldn't that show that the relationship would stood the test of time? Versus a young lady, right, who says she needs to talk to someone like consistently in order to maintain her relationship.
No, it's barely. It's easy to maintain friendship with somebody you're only talking to once every 2 years. Like,
I like, how is that easy to maintain if you're not talking to them?
Because you don't see any of the bad things. You just romanticize it. It's a guy that you meet every 2 years, and he's like, cool.
That's an assumption, though. You assume that
that's not an assumption. It's de facto. To spend more time around somebody and to maintain a friendship through multiple interactions and engagements shows that the metal of that friendship is much stronger.
Yeah, but you're assuming that it's not.
Let's say that you get a rattlesnake, it bites your dick. A rattlesnake bites your dick, okay, and you need someone to suck out the poison. How many of your guy friends would be willing to do that?
All of them. Easy. I mean, if that's what we're gonna do, all of them. They'd save my life if they love me.
Okay.
Right, like, but the thing
I figured you were gonna say none. I figured you were gonna say none. You got me.
No. I'm challenging this because, right, like we're looking at the shallow trivialities of like going to the mall with young ladies, right? Like, what are the things?
Literally, no one here has brought that up.
I just brought it up, so I
going
guess
to the
name's no
well,
one.
You said we're talking about the trivialities, but you're talking about the trivialities. Yeah, okay.
Yes, I am. So, but that's what you just implied, or at the very least, you're not really implying anything because you're just saying that women are just talking more often to each other. It doesn't mean that they're being
okay. I'm sorry. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I didn't know that I'm talking to people that don't have friends here. Okay, my bad. So having an emotionally fulfilling
people don't have friends here?
Having an emotionally fulfilling friendship usually means that you have some form of regular contact where somebody is up to date on the things going on in your life, and you can share with them the feelings and emotions that you have about those particular things. And sometimes you can even get feedback or advice. That's what a friendship is. I don't know how to define that. My bad.
I think
what I just said that requires regular contact.
No, you've kind of disrespected a lot of
how about
people's
this?
long-term relationships.
In order to build a friendship, in order to initially build a friendship, you have to have consistent contact with a person and interact frequently. Now that friendship, due to life circumstances, can go a long time without being renewed or looked into. And I understand what you're saying, where you could have a friendship that goes a long time without being interacted with, and then you can pick it up after 2 years. But I think that if you're only talking to someone once every couple years or couple months or even couple weeks, you see some guy every month, and I don't know if that's a friend.
I fundamentally distisagree. Like, you don't see your family every single day, your extended family, I guess, be more specific.
A lot of them aren't my friends.
But they're still still maintain a close relationship with them.
No, I maintain a family relationship, but it's not close.
You don't maintain a close relationship with your uncle because you haven't seen him?
Yeah, it's like a commitment relationship. Like we are family, so we have to be. But it's not like
but then
you don't see him in 10 years. You don't know him.
So what you're doing is you're using fulfilling and consistent interchangeably, which I guess in that case,
I'm not talking about fulfilling any.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But I thought that was the discussion. Relationship.
Using them interchangeably, like just because there is a correlation between consistency and fulfillment, doesn't mean we're using them interchangeably.
I just like there's acquaintances that you can be like I have like friends that I could probably meet that I haven't talked to in like 3 or 4 or 5 years, and we'd like hang out again. We'd be like friends, but these people aren't providing me like regular emotional support or any sort of like fulfilling friendship or relationship that I can like call in on like every now and then. Like these are just people that I know, and we were friends at one point in time because we share hobbies and get along, but it's not like a close, fulfilling relationship.
Yeah, but you would be assuming that because the woman is having regular time with another woman, that it's also close. It could be equally as shallow, if not.
It's very, very, very difficult to maintain close contact with somebody over a long period of time and not develop a deeper relationship.
You can say that all you want, but like what you're implying is that that is not the case. We don't know that. You're just saying that because there's frequency that it has to be fulfilling.
Yeah, I'm saying that because that's a statistical reality to how like relationships form. That's why people tend to date people around them in the same socioeconomic class, same race, same religion. It's because people spend time together at church. It's people spend time together at the workplace. People spend time together at school. They tend to date. Yeah, really, that's how all relationships. I don't even know. Why do I have to debate this? The people that you spend the time the most around, that you talk to the most, of course you do. Now it's possible you could have shallow relationships with those people, but the chances are the deep relationships are going to develop are going to be people that you're around. Yeah,
okay, I didn't dispute that. What I'm disputing is the fact that it necessarily is because there's
come on, nobody is saying 100% necessarily 100% all the. I'm sure there are some people
debate it.
Okay, my bad. When I say that, I didn't mean 100% of every single time you regularly talk to somebody, it means it's the deepest relationship of your life. I think everybody here understands that we're speaking in broad general strokes. The people that you talk to more frequently are going to be people that you have deeper relationships with. Every single person in this call's best friend or deepest relationship is not somebody they talk to once every 2 years. It's somebody they talk to at least on a weekly basis, if not on a daily basis.
Yeah, because you can know more about them. You're more familiar. Like but the fact that you talk more means that you can be closer.
At least that's the hope, though. Again, like we're just assuming that that's the case, and that the infrequency means that your relationship isn't as intimate or close anymore, which is
okay. I'm curious. Do you think that in general, do you think that more intimate relationships are held with people that you talk to more frequently? Do you think there's a really strong correlation between those two things?
I would say, yeah, definitely. I don't disagree with the fact that generally that would hopefully be the case. But if we're just going to assume that because women do this more frequently, it means their relationships are deeper, I don't think that can really be substantiated. I don't think that we can just say that men aren't able to be emotionally expressive and open with each other because women talk to each other a little bit more. We don't know what they're talking about.
If you had $1,000 and you had to put money on which was a stronger friendship, the person who saw each other every 2 years or the person who saw each other every day, where would you put that $1,000?
You probably put it on every day.
That's all we're saying. That it's more likely the case.
And okay, right? That's more likely the case. What I'm saying is that's not enough to say that women are
it's
more
like beyond a reasonable doubt. Criminal conviction levels of evidence here to prove that these relationships are better, I guess.
Like let's say you have two friends, one you see every day and one you've seen 5 years ago, and you have to get Christmas presents. Your ability to get a really like genuinely good gift for the person you see every day, that's you know them, so this is what's going to really be good for you, is going to be way higher than your ability to get a great gift for someone you haven't seen 5 years.
Okay, but then let's ask ourselves an interesting question. Like, if the relationship is shallow and you're not actually opening up and being vulnerable with the person, and all you do is you're going to the mall, you're just going to the park, would you say that that relationship is equally as fulfilling or more valuable than the person that you actually are intimate with, you sit down and you talk to? Let's say time has taken you apart from this person, but you come back to them.
Everybody agrees that would be the better relationship, not the one where you just go to the mall and don't talk about anything. We all agree with that.
Now, I will say this. I do value the people who, all I do is play video games with them. I don't have in-depth conversations and things. Would I consider them my friend? I consider them my video game friend. They're the friend I play video games with. Mm-hmm. But it's a fundamentally different experience than someone I'm actually friends with, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that, like having video game acquaintances and whatnot.
Oh, yeah,
but
you want to play.
The thing that I'm really disputing is like how we quantify this. Like how is that actual the quantification? I think it's more subjective.
I guess here's like a random subjective question. Do you feel like men tend to have emotionally fulfilling conversations with other men?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think that's
could you dispute
the reason.
Yeah,
I think that's the reason the conversation is happening in the first place.
I think men tend to suffer in silence. I think that's why they kill themselves more often. I think that's why they have issues admitting that they even have problems. I think men tend to be quiet and just like deal with it, and they don't have the ability to use friends as an outlet as much as women are able to.
If something will happen and you're scared and you don't know who you can talk to, and it's like, oh, like you're running down your list of people in your life, and it's like, well, like who am I close enough that I can talk to about this? You know what I mean?
I think there's also a lot of shame if you're a man and you've got issues like that too. Like you're never supposed to have those issues too. So you don't talk about
but it would probably be more the shame than the lack of having good friends, though, because
the shame leads to you not pursuing those conversations.
Well, hold on, Destiny. Let's say this, right? Let's say one party feels shame and they don't want to look weak, but the other man is willing and able to have that conversation. Like, are you going to say that these people aren't close because one person has to feel with the shame and move through that?
Correct. I would say they're not close. Yes.
Okay.
Just like in a therapeutic relationship, if you're too ashamed or you're too shy or you're too scared to tell your therapist what's wrong, you're also not having a good therapeutic relationship. Correct.
Okay. I still wouldn't maintain that every young man or even most of them are like that. I don't know.
If you share,
I would say that there are certainly some men.
You are punished societally for oversharing as a man. You are.
Well, definitely, but not to your close, intimate
if
friends.
you can acknowledge that men are disproportionately punished for oversharing, would not it stand to reason that therefore men in general tend not to share their feelings to the level that women do?
To women specifically, but not to young men. No, I wouldn't.
No, in general, just in general.
No, I wouldn't maintain that in general. No.
Okay, well, I can't help you. You're just wrong.
No, I apologize.
Wow.
I mean, I've spoken to very many young men who have been open, vulnerable, and would talk with these conversations. So to say this is like, it just doesn't match any of my experience. I don't even know how you would quantify it, is also what I keep saying. If I've had these experiences where I've had these relationships, I can't then be like, well, this has been like my lifetime, and then
for that to be true. For that to be true, then there needs to be two different social bars for men, one separate for men and one separate for women, because there's a big thing with the incels where like women will get traumatized by going on a date with an incel because he'll just start fucking trauma dumping on trauma. You just tell her his whole fucking life story because he hasn't had these conversations with anybody, and as soon as like a woman's willing to like fucking talk to him, he just fucking all of it starts coming out, and she's like, Jesus Christ, I got to get the fuck out of here. And so then that's a common experience you hear about a lot. And so you think that he only feels so corked up and it all comes out because he has those conversations with other men? It's just now like his cork is only on the woman side of his social brain. So as soon as that comes out, like, no, it's the same. I'm
gonna be honest with you. I think that's more of a personality default. I remember back in high school, and I apologize for the anecdote, but I remember back in high school, there's this young foster girl who did the very thing, right? Like, I met her on the bus, talked to her, went home, added her on Facebook, and then she just told me her whole life story. It just seems to be something that's more to the person than it is male or female.
It's loneliness. There's people that do that, don't have anybody to talk to.
I understand, but that's kind of what I'm saying.
But men do that more than women.
You say that, but again, I don't know how we would quantify that.
Can I ask, Ziku, do you have these conversations that you say men are very sharing? Are they in person or online?
Both.
More so equally both, like, or do you have more online or more in person?
Probably a little bit more online, but that's more due to like time constraints. Like,
I think that the sharing information like that online is a lot easier because of the level of anonymity involved, right? And
no. Like I thought you meant like having friends that you talk to consistently, like online, versus, because I have both. I have friends online and I have people I can talk to.
You said I was referring to the people you say that are always sharing their feelings with you that are men.
Yeah, some of them are in like my Discord server, and then growing up, like in high school and in college, they were in person.
Lauren, do you have relationships with men that are similar to your relationships with women?
Is it no one gonna tell her?
I guess I answered that. Yeah. Oh,
Lauren, you're muted.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm a great anecdote because I'm not a great anecdote because of just I'm weirdly unique that I have most of my friends are men. Like most of my close relationships are with men. However,
would you call those intimate relationships?
Yeah, like my closest friends are men for the most part. And then most of the women that I'm very good friends with are also like decently masculine. Just because like I rode crew and played football and was a math major and joined the military. Like I was in a lot of men's spaces. So, but I do see that, like, my sister, for instance, is extremely feminine, and the way her relationships are like nothing that I've ever seen. Like, extremely close. All of her sorority sisters, they've been friends throughout elementary school, middle school. So I don't know. This is such an anecdotal issue, and I'm not the right anecdote.
Okay. I mean, Kidology, what about you? Because I mean, I'll say, like, anecdotally, everything that Base is saying is the opposite for me. Like, I spend time with guys through, like, playing basketball, playing fantasy football, you know, playing video games. But, like, all of those things, we don't have time to, like, share intimate information. But when I'm talking to women, they want to go shopping. They want to, like, sit on the phone and talk. They want to do very different things. So, Kidology, are your relationships with men different than your relationships with women?
Yes, definitely. All my relationships with men, it's very much I'm just there to hear their problems that they can't speak about with men or with their families. It's definitely very one-sided in that regard, and it is very evident that it is because I'm a woman that they can actually speak to about these things. With my female friends, yeah, it's very different in the sense that, well, firstly, I'm also, I guess, a bit unique in this. All my female friends are over the age of 50, so we have a very different relationship in terms of being able to go for months without speaking to each other and then meeting up and it all being okay. We catch up for like a whole day, like that's fine. So this idea of sort of needing to be in sort of consistent, continual contact really isn't something that resonates too well with me in terms of my female friendships. But I do think that a lot of this could actually be solved with men and women becoming friends, and rather than this sort of, I think this stigma and this fear that a lot of men have that ultimately you can't interact with women unless it's sexual, or that inevitably it's sexual. A lot of incels make this excuse whenever I suggest that they need to actually try to make friends with women, that they need to pursue women not as conquests, but as actual human beings and as actual friends. It's just dismissed entirely. And it's a very, I think, a very unique thing to men. When I speak to my female friends about befriending men, they're a lot more enthusiastic about that prospect and would want that. But I think there is just a disconnect in terms of how we see
I think
each other.
that's really difficult for men, because having no women friends like makes you want a girlfriend so much more. So like, but having women friends also makes it easier to get a girlfriend. So it's like being single makes it harder to see women as friends, and it's harder to see women as friends, as just friends when you're single. It's kind of like a loop that like negatively feeds into itself. Like once you have a relationship and you're actually dating somebody, it's a lot easier to see a woman as a friend because you're not like desperately pining for somebody's attention, right? You got a girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. But an issue that I do find with, I've had this like 99% of the time with men who I'm friends with, is that when they try to initiate sort of like an actual relationship or like a sexual relationship and I don't reciprocate, then they end the friendship. Like
that's
entirely.
Totally fine, and that's super appropriate. That's what should happen. Yeah.
No, but why should that happen when I say, well, I'm happy with us being friends? Like,
because if somebody has a romantic interest in you and it's not reciprocated, then it's hard to convert that romantic interest into just a friend interest. Maybe
it takes time for it to convert into that.
It doesn't take time.
It's definitely possible.
It
takes time, patience, and discipline. If it doesn't work out in the long term, then fair enough.
The only way that it'll work is if they start dating somebody else. Realistically, if you've got a romantic attachment to somebody and they reject you, you're not going to be friends with that person unless you find somebody else first to like focus that kind of romantic attention on. Any other type of friendship is going to be incredibly
unhealthy. And that
unhealthy.
is possible.
Also, yeah, it'd be really hard. But there's one more thing happening here, though. Also, I think that men are unable to see women as friends because the woman that they think that they can be intimate with, that intimacy is like bundled up with their sexual element of their relationship. So so they are unable to really see a woman in an intimate way without the sex being part of it too.
Well, do you think that it may be a little bit more shallow and that men have a tough time being friends with women because their interests are just different? Maybe it isn't that men are dehumanizing women. Maybe they just like.
I don't think that's true. I think that like I've met men and women who share my interests maybe my interests are more feminine than most. I don't know. Yeah, I just don't think that's true. I think that this isn't a gender issue when it comes to interest. I will say though that yes, if you are not in a relationship, if you're not having sex, then it becomes something that you focus on and it drowns out a lot of else. It doesn't have to, but in a lot of cases, that's how it manifests. And so it is much more difficult to find someone of the opposite sex as a friend when you aren't getting sex somewhere else.
You know, it's interesting you guys say that, but I'm not even sure I could point to personal examples just within my own friend group or even online where someone said that I've been so lonely and I met this girl and I can't be friends. I just have to be with only her. I've never even seen that like played out.
What you just said sounds like what every single guy I've ever heard in my entire life has said. I don't think I have ever. I don't believe it. No, I have never heard of a guy who's like, I'm lonely. I can't find any girlfriend. Like I never dated a girl before, but I found this one girl and we're really close friends and that's all I want from her. I have never in my life. I would go as far as to say this is one of the few hyperbolic things. Like I don't know if any guys ever said that. That sounds like
no. He said that he can't be friends with. No, what I'm saying is what you guys said is that the men are dehumanizing the women. That is not something I think is consistent. If you said that a guy met a girl and he really liked her as a friend at first and it transitioned to romantic interest, I would agree. But that's not dehumanization. That's not men being incapable of being friends with women.
I don't know if being incapable of being friends with somebody is dehumanizing.
It's not
dehumanizing. That's how you guys framed it.
This happens in the reverse too. A woman who really wants to be in a relationship has a hard time being a friend with a guy without developing a romantic interest or anything like that. There's just
true.
Yes.
Probably.
Absolutely.
So you say.
Definitely.
So yeah, I don't know. I didn't mean to kill the conversation, but here we are.
You did.
I mean, I've heard
Definitely. But I think again, with that point, definitely that does happen. That recently happened to me, but I'm still friends with him, and it is possible. It's difficult, but it's possible. And I think ultimately you need to see friendship as a priority over everything else, especially when it comes to being in a relationship with someone, because sex does inevitably, when you're in a relationship, you know, the spark dies.
But why must we prioritize friendship over everything else? If someone has their friendship needs met, like they have friends, they're going out with the boys every night, they've totally fulfilled in the friendship scenario. Why would they have to prioritize friendship?
Not only
because no friendship is the same. I value this friendship with this individual because of this individual, not because I'm comparing it to all my other friendships.
Even on another level, I'm going to do the thing where a man tells women how they feel. I think women do tend to they view friendships and relationships very differently. I think it is incredibly rare that a woman will be friends with a man for more than like a couple weeks, if that, before deciding whether or not he's a potential romantic partner. It is incredibly rare that a woman is friends with a guy for a long time and then that changes into something romantic. I think the decisions on whether there's any sort of physical attraction, romanticism there is decided pretty early.
I disagree. Completely.
Well, also women are pretty heavily stigmatized for like finding out that the guy that they're friends with are like have a romantic interest in them, and then they know that but stay friends with them anyways. Like women are like stigmatized for friend zoning them, for leading them on, for continuing to talk to them afterwards.
You can do that in a healthy way or an unhealthy way. Like as a woman, like people can do that kind of thing where they know the other person is romantically interested and still have a friendly relationship with them. They could do that in a healthy way, and they could do that in a very unhealthy way. And I've seen both play out, right? And I think the big difference between that is in being just totally open, totally honest, right? So the unhealthy way is when they string them along and like, well, maybe, right? Maybe if my circumstances change, maybe once I'm done with school, maybe once this, because they value that friendship, but they don't want to lose that. So they kind of lead the guy on by letting them think.
I think the leading on is a little bit more subtle when it comes to women, again, because what I said before, I think that women tend to view romantic attachments and friendships as very separate things, but there's a lot more overlap there as opposed to how men view it. Like for women can have very emotionally intimate relationships with guys without feeling any romantic connection whatsoever. I think for guys, that's a lot more different. If a guy is starting to become pretty emotionally intimate with a woman, that's almost always going to be because he's got like a greater attraction there. So I think for women that are talking to a guy and then they find out, oh, he's got a romantic interest in me, but I don't, I turned him down. I did everything I needed to. So now everything is cool, but I'm still going to be really emotionally intimate with him. That's where the guy ends up getting like mind fucked, because he thinks that, well, if she's being emotionally intimate with me, then there's a chance I've got here. But in her mind, she's like, well, no, I can just be emotionally intimate with guys that are friends. It's a lot harder for a guy to do that with a woman. Almost impossible.
I agree, but I only agree because of how much intimacy men get in general. I think that if women were in the same position as a man and they had way less friends and way less like options and stuff, then I think that they would end up being like that.
Possibly. Or if you just had more friends with women or relationships in general, yeah. Like I said, once you're in a relationship, it's easier because you're not looking to fill that bucket with the first girl that comes along. You're not trying to like desperately make somebody a girlfriend or get that emotional intimacy that you need in a relationship.
Lauren, you had something you wanted to say to Kidology earlier. Do you remember?
No, I do not. We moved away. It's no longer relevant.
Okay. All right. Well, we can go ahead and go to closing statements then. We will start with Smith.
I think we should all be friends with different sexes, and we should try to learn from each other. I think that I think men just have to sort of be more selective, and kind of like the entitlement that men hate about women, like the red pill, like they have, like they'll see this entitlement that women have about how they select the men that they pick. Men just need to be like that. Just be more like, I need to pick women that are good for my life, and let's just be less like stupid horn dog brain, and be more like more selective and protective of yourself, and don't throw yourself under the bus. That's what I think.
All right, Wick.
Yeah, friendship's important. You need it. But when it comes down to it, happiness is a choice. If you aren't fulfilled, make changes in your life so that you may be. Make sure that your happiness comes from an internal source rather than an external source, and you're good. You're golden. That's my statement.
Thank you. Base.
I think the conversation here might be a little bit too subjective. As we saw in my experience, I've always been able to be open with my friends and them in turn. I've had female friends I've been able to been open with, and in turn, it's been reciprocated. I mean, of course, there's going to be some people who aren't, and there's going to be some young men who do bottle things up. But I don't know if we can just say men are incapable generally of it, or men don't have these relationships. Or that women have more fulfilling. I don't really know how to quantify that, and it just does seem to be very subjective. So I feel that it's kind of up to the individual. It's more about the character of the person than anything else.
All right, Kidology.
Yes, I think men and women have far more in common than they have differences, and we fixate to our detriment on these minuscule differences, which I think divide us more than so unite us. I think we need to become friends, not just friends with other women as women or men with other men. I think between each other, rather than waiting until we're in relationships to have sort of intercouple friendships. I think that we can gain a lot of insight and knowledge and empathy from each other by becoming actual friends, and valuing friendship and sort of the happiness that can come from that, and the fulfillment that can come from that, over that of just reducing all of our interactions to sex and to these evolutionary generalizations, which seem to make people very happy nowadays. So yes.
All right, Lauren.
So I just think that men and women have different relationships, not because of training or anything that was said earlier. It's not because of that. It's just that men and women are mentally wired different. They are meant to relate differently. They have natural relationships that are different. The way that fathers impact a son's life is vastly more impactful than how any other person, in fact, including a mother, would impact a daughter's life, according to the studies. So I think that they're different. I don't think that they're better. And I do not think that men should start mimicking women. I think men should remain masculine.
And Destiny.
You know, what can I say that hasn't already been said? I think men are generally emotionally retarded. Need to work on not being that. That's my general takeaway.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming on. For anybody who wants to find any of these awesome people on this panel, we have all of their links in my description on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com/tomfoolery show and you can find each and every one of them. Thanks to Sassafras and Emperor Dave for producing the show and getting everybody on here, getting all the links and everything together. They did an awesome job setting up this panel. We're going to do probably 2 panels a week. So every other week we'll continue doing shootout panels. We stream them on Kick, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. We host debates. We cover drama. We have a wide variety of different political positions in the community. So come over here, check us out, and thank you guys all for coming on. Y'all have a good night.